thank you guys for coming out. I'm sorry that this couldn't be on snow because there is nothing worse than sitting inside at least it's raining. So that's a blessing, I guess, right? Because you're like, okay, all right, I'm not sacrificing the most beautiful day of spring to be in here doing this. The other thing is that the important thing for me in this whole day as we spend it together is that it is not death by PowerPoint. We have a PowerPoint because it's a nice way to guide things and have, it gives us some insight in how to like maybe drive the presentation. But the presentation is really, it's not me. And it's not all of the knowledge that's out there, right? It's really about the questions you guys have, where you have like little bits and pieces you've been thinking about, your own perception of the sport in all the different disciplines of adaptive. And I don't drive it, you do, because I'm here as a resource more than I am the person who just spews this out to you and you guys take it all in. I don't want it to be like that. It never should be like that. That's not a great teachable moment. For me, it's about, I come here, I don't even like to plan too much. I like to let it be a little organic in its nature. So well, I mean, I know the equipment we have here, but each and every single one of you has a different need and a different focus that you probably have, or a different area of the adaptive sports world that you really love or are passionate about, and we need to meet the needs of everybody and when it comes to that. So don't feel that you're taking us off track or anything like that. The questions are good questions, and that's the only way you guys are going to grow and be better educators, and ultimately transcend it on down into our students, which is the most important. I want questions. Yeah, I want questions and I want voices. Yeah, and I want curiosity. Yeah.
This is multidiscipline. You guys are at all different levels in your journey. We've got some new people, and all three mountains are represented, which is great. And so there's, how many of you snowboarders besides LJ?
Yeah, we have a few. Yeah, and I think that's also, don't separate yourself. You guys are just people that slide on snow. As a mono skier and sit skier, you know what? I'm kind of a hybrid. I'm a skier and I'm a snowboarder. Right? I only have one, but a lot of the same things. And one of the reasons that you've seen the fundamentals are the words are very similar now, because there is a lot more commonality than the separation of snowboard and skiing there was at one time. When you really take it down to it, it's just a sliding tool, and the same forces need to be enacted upon it to get it to turn, right? So
last thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to Matt for being here. He's going to videotape all day so that we have access to this for other people to put in the classroom, so that we can share this with other people, because we know there's going to be things that they can learn from also in all of our groups. So. I'm going to let Geoff take it away.
I'm actually excited. In some ways, it may be better that we're able to do this indoors than on snow, because we can cover a lot of things and not having to have the lift time and then the talking out on snow. I mean, it is always nice to feel it and see it in that environment, but maybe this will give you some things to then, when you do get back out on snow, or maybe you go down to New Jersey and play with it this year, and go down to Big Snow or something like that to actually try to put it into play. But yeah. And for me, I wish I could have come out on snow when Augie had to cancel a little bit ago, but I had an injury this winter myself, so I haven't been on snow since February 1st when I tore my tricep tendon off my elbow. So yeah, so I had to have surgery, and I'm just almost at 3 months out where I can start doing things. So yeah, just out of a brace a few weeks ago, but getting my strength and stamina back right now. But let me show you a quick video. This is something that Nordica did on me. It just shows you a little bit about me and just gives you a little insight into the person and the educator that I guess that I love to be. This place is gnarly. New Hampshire is called the Granite State. When you look around, you see bare granite. And the fact that it's white mountains and we actually have snow-capped peaks, it's not just trees all the way to the top.
We saw that before. Yeah.
That was. We are at my house right now, my garage, my place that I love to hang out in and, like tune skis and do all the mad scientist work.
Dad, you want a beer?
A lot of cool stuff happens in here. Plus, it's just a social place to be able to hang out with friends and family. My morning, it starts early. getting up, making the coffee, getting the breakfast ready, trying to make sure that all the gear is set for the day, which is always complex. I found this town through my college roommate. You know, being a Boy Scout and camping and hiking, everything around that was huge to me, let alone the skiing, which was like definitely something that brought me in. I'm Geoff Krill. I am a professional ski instructor. I'm the training manager at Loon Mountain, New Hampshire. It's where I get to raise my kids and have a family. Roll back an inch at the top. There you go.
Geoff is the only person that I know of that is a sit skier that is in charge of able-bodied skiing training in the country and possibly the world. People should aspire to be as good as he is every day.
One of the great things about the Lincoln Woodstock community here in the Loon Mountain area is just the type of people that are here. You know, that you can trust your children are going to be raised by this community.
When you're riding on the chairlift, you see the guy go down the hill and you go, whoa, what is that? And then he lightens up and he sort of dances down the hill. Here at Loon, we traditionally have about 350 instructors, and he'll touch each and every one of their lives. And then on his days off, he travels with PSIA, ASI, and he'll work with thousands of others throughout the season. He has touched thousands of lives in snow sports.
When my accident happened, it was kind of a crazy night. We decided we were going to go snowmobiling, and we went up on the Kankamangas Highway, up on Bear Notch Road, and it's a 3-season road, and it was a low snow year, and I just happened to hit a patch of ice, not doing anything crazy, high-sided, and it threw me into a guardrail post that hit me right in the chest, where it broke my back at T7, T8. And you know, in that first moment, you're going through all these fears of what that is. There was no pain. It was just, I hit it, and I kind of came to, and I was trying to struggle to my feet, and I was hitting my legs, and I couldn't feel it, and I couldn't feel it. Soon I just laid on my back, and I just looked up the sky. It was 20 below that night, and stars were out, and I looked up. Whether you want to have a spiritual moment or not, there was a voice that came to me, and it said, Geoff, what's your purpose in life? And somehow in my head, I said, I'm going to be really good at being in a wheelchair. I was back skiing 10 months later. I never missed a season. When I'm on edge and hooked up into it, I'm locked into life. I am hooked up with the snow. It's a part of me, and there's an energy that's built from that. In the moment, you know, you feel those pressures, you feel them build, and then there's this incredible release as you come out of that turn. And it blows me away every time I make those turns, or that, you know, you get tossed up in the air, a bump hits you, and you still make that turn in the air. The ski hooks up with the snow, brings it right in, pressure's right in, and drives. There's nothing like it. When I get to teach, I like to make it simple. See, and I see what you're doing there, and rolling back and forth like that. That move right there is everything that's good in skiing. Like your ability to do that with your feet.
You know, with Geoff's challenge, he can't necessarily show people what to do. You know, to make a wedge turn, he can't do that because he's on a monoski and sitting down and he can't stand up. However, his ability to connect with the person just breaks through all these barriers. It's unbelievable.
Give you a little bit of something about me and why I am so passionate about skiing, because it means a lot to me. You know, it's something that, you know, I don't want to say that it saved me, but it gave me a real purpose in life just when making that first turn and what I was able to do. And that's why I will be the person that always holds to trying to see what people's abilities are and what they're capable of first and foremost, and then we can kind of go from there. But I want people to be able to explore their strengths and their ability to do things themselves and to see what that grows into. Because I think through the greatest struggles become the greatest rewards, right? And I wouldn't be able to be where I am in my career and work in the able-bodied world and have that amount of respect with having a disability, if that wasn't, you know, provided to me. And people didn't look at it as an independent, it's just skiing. And that's kind of my mantra to the whole thing, is skiing is skiing is skiing. Snowboarding is snowboarding is snowboarding. It doesn't matter what your disability is or how you ride upon it. You have to turn the same tool. So we just got to figure out how to make that happen. And that's kind of what we're going to do here today. Is a lot of this is about movement analysis, giving you guys maybe a better understanding of what body parts to enact, what to look for in different situations with different pieces of equipment, because all of a sudden you put this underneath somebody, it changed it into like, I don't know what to look for. They're just coming down the hill. We were talking about it a little bit ago. I think for a lot of instructors, they get to a certain point where a person is staying upright and they're not having to pick them up, and then they're completely happy because you're not sweating as much, they're happier, and then we kind of get into this mode of not teaching as much, and we just are really happy that they're smiling, the frustration is maybe gone, but there's a lot. That's the point where you can really start to introduce some great concepts, right? And that's where we got to really continue on to build really efficient skiers and riders. So think of it from that aspect. That's the way I kind of start to look at it. So this is one of the things that I always ask my guests, and I've been working in the alpine and snowboard world as a training manager at Loon for the past 11 years, and now I've switched back into the disabled world, if you want. So I just went back to New England Disabled Sports, where I'm working at Loon for their program. So I am back in the disabled world again. But for me, it was a career growth piece to see that if I could function and be at the highest level within that. Yeah, for 11 years in doing that. And just, now it's just time to go back to it and get back to, what brought me up in this world. And I'm really excited to do that. But the question that I've been asking and everybody these days, and it's really brought me a lot of insight into working with the able-bodied population, and I'm bringing what I've learned in that back into the disabled population, is people come to the mountain with preconceived notions on how they're going to accomplish skiing or snowboarding, right? Every little kid who's been out there, the reason that they want to learn to ski or snowboard is because they watched some awesome video on YouTube, didn't they? Right? They saw somebody doing it and that looks cool and that looks fun and I want to go do that. And the second you do that, now you maybe scroll through and you watch a bunch of them, or you saw a poster of a skier or snowboarder, and usually the first thing you see, it's a pretty high-end turn, isn't it? Because that looks cool. So in your head, you're like, how do I do that? You're already starting to develop in your mind, how am I physically going to make that image happen for me? And when you do that, you're usually wrong in your approach, right? Because you have no foundation from which to build. How do you get to that high edge angle turn? So when I go out to my group for the first time and we're sitting there and we're talking about the skis and we're talking about the boots or we're talking about the sit ski and the piece of equipment, I ask them, how do you think you're going to turn this? How do you turn a ski? And they look at you and they already, you can see them start to wiggle their bodies a little bit, right? Because they've already thought about it. They know what they're going to try to do the second you give them the green light to go sliding. And what they try to do is they try to go edge and edge, right? They think, well, you just roll your ankles, right? You just lean your body in. You just do that. Nobody has ever said, oh, you just turn your feet the direction you want to go. Why do you think that is? Even though we know, because we've been instructors for a while, right? We've been told about this, but think about the learner in front of you. They know nothing about rotary. They know nothing about rotation and steering. All they see is, oh, I've got to edge these things, or I've got to tip them over to get them to work. Because that's what they've seen. So they've built their own progression in their head. Yeah.
It's static, not dynamic.
What's that?
It's static, not dynamic.
Right. Yeah. And even if they've seen it in a dynamic video, they still are seeing that motion, right? But they're not seeing how much steering is, and they can't understand the forces that are being applied to get that ski to bend and to arc and to do all these things. So they get out there, and the first thing they do is they roll their ankles and they ride it off over or fall over or tip inside. Right? Even if you've taught them a wedge, they're still in their mind doing this tipping and edging and trying to get to, and they've been told about pizzas and parallel, so they're always trying to get to parallel too quickly because they know that that's a goal, right? They know that parallel is like the ultimate, or being able to make a turn across the hill, but they don't think that the wedge is valuable. They just think that that's the pizza French fries. That's what like little kids do. So they're trying to become better more quickly. So I always have a conversation about what that is. So they all sit there and they lean left and right and they roll their ankles, and sit skiers do the same thing. They sort of tip against their outriggers. Same thing with 3-trackers, or they think that the outriggers are going to be the thing that's going to actually allow them to ski instead of the actual ski underneath them. And I have that conversation right from the very beginning about what it takes to turn a ski. And I get that idea and that notion out of their head because they are always thinking tipping, edging, and I'm like, no, that's not it. It's steering. Think flat and think about how we need to steer. And I'll tell you what, I save myself so many headaches by introducing that concept, because I'll spend the first 20, 30 minutes unteaching the progression that they've already built in their head. So try that sometime when you're out there. Have the discussion with your friends, or when people are out there trying to learn how to ski or want to know more about skiing, ask them how they think they're going to do it, because I can get rid of a lot of problems right from the beginning. Make sense? So for me, that's just a place I like to start when I get out there from, a teaching skiing, getting an understanding of what they already have built into their head about where they're going to go and how they're going to do it, so that I can teach them the right way and have a discussion with them like why that's ineffective or what's going to happen if they do that. And then we can have a more honest building conversation from that moment out. Cool. Make sense? So with that in mind, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint, the deadly PowerPoint. See, I was able to go without it for a while. So yeah, we can get in movement analysis, right? And there's a lot of different ways to approach this. I am going to have you guys start to stand up here because we're going to play with a few things and try to make it as interactive as we can. So if everybody can get up and get in their athletic stance, whether it's ski, snowboard. Who are my snowboarders in here? LJ and who else? Yes, you as well. Everybody does it a little bit too. So maybe you can go in and out of roles within the day to just play with it in different aspects. I mean, we've all been told about this athletic stance, right? I have a lot of feelings around it because I think there's a lot more to be taught, and I think there's not enough understanding of what the athletic stance is, and what we try to get people into this athletic stance, and then we get them into their skis and their boots, and the first thing we do is we tell them that they need to get forward. Okay? Right. So what happens when we tell them to get forward? And how do they do it? There's a bunch of different ways you can get forward, And you know what? Maybe we're going to go into this right from the get-go. Can we get you guys in your skis and boots right now? Because I'm going to do it right off the get-go. We're going to get into the stuff because it's going to give you something to leverage off of, and you're going to have better balance when we play with it. So I'm going to get you guys booted up right from the beginning, and we'll get into some movement. Let's get onto our toes for a second. And let's talk about the different sensations and feelings when you get on your toes. And what I find is that there's different ways that people do that. So do it where you just leverage it just through your head and your shoulders. You feel that? Yep. You're still on your toes. Yep. Right? And you'll find that a lot of individuals do sort of the Cadillac hood ornament or the Rolls Royce hood ornament kind of thing, where they because the boots will support you this way. I had a long time ski instructor, a friend of mine, an ex-US ski team guy who was on in the 60s, Gordy Eaton, if you've ever heard of him. But he worked for K2 for a lot. But he's like, if we could go back to leather boots, it would be the best thing to teach kids and anybody how to ski, because you had to find center, because they were so soft that you couldn't do things like we're talking about right here. You can get away with that, leaning forward. And the way that so that's one way to get forward is with the upper body. Another way, let's come back more to center. Another way you can get forward is drive your knees forward. You can drive your knees forward and you still feel the front of the boot and you still feel the ball of your foot, but what else when you tend to do that, most of the time your butt drives back. If you push your knees into the front to do it, your butt ends up a little bit behind, doesn't it? Yes, your shins are forward, but your weight is back. Can you feel that? Where you just pushed your knees forward and into it, but your butt came behind. Right, and then, okay, and when you do that, where do you feel the pressure in your foot? So a lot of this sensitivity is really important to what are you feeling in the bottom of your foot. Yeah, you felt that even though your shins were forward, you felt your heel, right? So when we're saying, squish the bug, do all these things, right, that you say to little kids, yeah, isn't it? Yep, quarters, dollar bills, all the things that you've heard ski instructors say for thousands of years, I guess, right? It's not necessarily getting them in the right position, is it? There's shins in the boot, and depending upon how you find it, or what we're looking for is a feeling of the entire foot. What I like when you are in your athletic position, because we're going to start at the base, you should feel the ball of the foot and the heel of the foot. So if you think about your arch, you should probably feel pressures basically a little bit right at the ball and just in forward of the heel.
Same amount of pressure.
Same amount of pressure on both.
Right.
Can you? Sure.
So I'm a little unique,
Sure.
and I can't feel. I
Yeah.
say all the time that if someone were to shoot me, they should shoot me in the right side of my body because I probably wouldn't feel a gunshot wound.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
when my
Where does your
foot-
sensation start? Do you have any in your shins, in your legs? I mean, and within your, is that in one leg or both legs?
I'm heavy.
Hemi.
I'm
So, yeah.
so yeah, right, my left, so I'm right side back.
Okay. Yeah. And where do you feel, like, you don't have any sensation at all in?
Barely any. So I mean, I just go forward,
Sure.
but I couldn't like.
So I would like, so instead of saying to go forward, can you stand tall and then, and then I always say, like, squish your suspension. Like if you were a spring and you got a little squatty, come down in central as much as you can. And I think what you can do is use your one leg that you have sensation in to be sort of your telltale. Because,
Yeah. Okay.
right, so use that one to find your center, because your body likes to find symmetry and matching. So even though you don't have sensation on that one side, if your other leg is in a good position that's efficient, your body likes to find that as much as possible. And you can probably start to see it. When you're finding center, you shouldn't be really heavy on your shins. You should feel like you're more, within that cuff, you're sort of lightly caressed, right?
Pressure, put pressure on the shins. You don't want pressure, you just need contact.
Right. And because that changes throughout the turn, and we're going to get into a little bit of that, because a lot of the things that we say as instructors all the time have meaning that doesn't always transcend into a good physical positioning.
And don't forget that we're putting our students in equipment that is rental, and a lot of times we don't even tell them how to put the boots on, so they come out with super light, comfort, trying to find comfort. They don't even buckle in all the way, and they're probably not sized right sometimes, so they got lots of room and play in there.
Sure. And what I find a lot of times in beginner skiers, and even a lot of people that are intermediate, advanced, we see too many don't know where that athletic stance is, or they've been told to get forward. I see a lot of people that they're leaning forward, keep coming like that, and then even come down into your suspension, but they're putting a lot of pressure like that. And look at that boot angle. Where do you feel? And you guys can try to mimic that stance. And then I'll ask you, what do you feel in your foot, and where do you feel it?
I don't feel my heel.
Yeah, you don't feel your heel. Yeah. How many people always say we need to get you off the heels or off the back seat?
How many of you have used that phrase, shin tongue?
Yeah.
I hear it out on the hill from some of you as a drill, telling people to push your shin into the tongue of your boot.
Yep.
And it cracks me up because I know that our students don't know what the tongue of a boot is. We don't tell them what I know, right? Doug uses that term a lot, and he tells his students, shin tongue, shin tongue.
Yeah, I have this really old instructor, and it's so inappropriate, but he goes, we're going to go ski in China now. And he says, we're doing shin, tongue, toe. And I'm like, you can't say that. Like, you can't, he's 80, and it's just not it. But again, that's the wrong thing to say, not from the other aspect of it, but it's the fact that if you're only talking about the toe and the tongue of the boot, you're missing out on one of the things is to be able to balance along the length of the ski is one of our fundamentals, right? If you're going to do that, if you're on your toe, what part of the ski do you think you feel? You feel the tip. Tip's great. But we're right, and this is the thing that's really important about establishing and talking about what the sensations you feel in your foot and where you are. And the same thing, let's bring into snowboard. A lot of times when you're starting out and you try to, like LJ, when they'd say, get on the front foot, they talk about that and having all your weight forward on that front foot. But don't always talk about how to move back. So it's that whole sense, because if you look at LJ and his board for a minute, we'll get him turned around.
Wait 30 seconds, then you can look at it later.
Yeah, all right, we'll get him in.
On his knees again.
He's down. Yes.
If I'm knees bent, but think tall
But think tall. But so
to get the hips forward.
sure, but the thing is, our bodies are a lot like a suspension on a car too. So if you guys we'll get real tall for a minute, since you brought the point up, right? You get real tall. Feels kind of light, doesn't it? Knees bent, but a little bit. If you get too tall, so I'll relate this to mountain bikes and suspension. Whenever you go to sit on the suspension of your bike, there's a little bit of sag, or even in my monoski, it's built so that it drops into it. Without a little bit of pressure over our joints, the second you start thinking light and tall, you take away your ability to turn and steer those joints. Our joints need to have a little bit of pressure and weight over them to have strength and stability. Can you kind of feel that difference? If you stand too tall and think about height, you're actually taking away some of the strength and power that you have over your joints. Can you feel that? Yeah. So, but I know what you mean by saying tall, or trying to get the knees from not being driven too much into it. Yeah. I try to get people more like, I want you to stand tall, and then I want you to just almost like exhale and let your body sink and kind of find that. But I want you to, when you do that, find the position where you feel, if this was your arch, you feel the ball and you feel just in front of that heel too, all at the same time.
What if, I feel a lot in my arch, I feel like.
That's because if you're centered there.
So, what I sort of hear you saying, I think, is you don't want to feel that the boot is supporting you fully.
Right. So yeah, exactly. If all your weight is forward like that, you are going to be pivoting always on the ball of your foot.
So this year, you guys know I had the injury, and most of the season I spent on 125s. Geoff even got to see me because he's been at our training. That's what I was skiing in. And take away the support of all of this, I had to ski on blue trails or wherever we were, I had to be completely centered. I didn't have the support of equipment other than my boots. So it's kind of what he's getting at is where you need to be with flexion and completely centered. So you
What's
got to
your skiing because it's large?
Well, I agree with that 100%. I think that a shorter ski, because for a lot of people, when we have a longer ski, we can start to cheat it a little bit, right? You've got more of a lever in front of you that you can lean over, right? Because you can leverage it. And the same thing when you have a longer ski of more tail. So you can be back. You can also lean back further and leverage off the back of your boot because of that.
Those of you who've been with me for a long time, you've probably heard me start a clinic saying, unbuckle your boots if you're comfortable, and start your first run to warm up to find your intrinsic balance. Find it on your own without the support of the boot, and then we tighten up on the second run.
Yeah. I mean, the discussion here is really, what are we feeling in our feet that is truly center? And then we'll expand the conversation a little bit from there. And the things we're talking about, like how do we establish it? You do the get up, get tall, and a lot of these things we introduce, but it's not the place we want them to live. So when we introduce concepts, and this is the problem, we'll say get forward. And next thing you know, everybody, they're staying forward all the time. Also, there's another piece to this is whoever talks about using the heel.
That used to be a four-letter word for PSIA 5 years ago. Well, couldn't use that word.
Well, the heel is one of those things. It is, but it's the magical place.
It is.
So let's think about, we're going to discuss how we use it and how we can evolve from an efficient use of it. The heel is the most powerful piece of the whole turn.
Anatomically.
Yeah, because it is what finishes it. Our tails tend to be, especially on like slalom skis, a little stiffer tail gives us more energy, more pop, more glide.
Turn without a heel.
Right. Well, not cleanly.
Right.
Right? If we're going to use the whole ski, that means using it from tip to tail. And we can't engage the tail if we don't know how to engage the heel. And when I say the heel, it's not behind the heel. It's, think about locking it in, right? If this is the talus, right, at the back of your heel, it's that feeling of how it engages and pushes that tail through the turn. It doesn't get behind it. It stays, that your weight comes back just a little bit to engage it.
Alignment, you talk about using your bones, your skeletal system, that's where you land in walking, is that you have to have the heel, because anatomically, your bones are supported by the talus.
Right. Yeah. So by moving, so here's the thing: is it's a smaller move than you might realize. There's a I don't know if you guys know Ron Kipp. He's a guy that he does a lot. He was U.S. ski team coach. He's out in Palisades, Tahoe, does a lot with their racing team out there. Great guy, very knowledgeable skier. And he was doing a segment I really liked. He talks about the cone of control. And when we talk about the cone of control, that is how much movement, because we don't move just fore aft along the ski. We kind of move in a conical whirlwind as we go through a turn. So, and the same thing, LJ, for it's going to be hard for you standing. It's going to exhaust you all the time. All right. Yeah. So we're going to start with you as the snowboarder, so you can see it in LJ first, so I can get you back up real quick. First of all, we were talking about the fore aft. So what LJ has for himself, so just to give you guys a better idea what snowboarders are doing. So I think of between his feet is the arch of your foot. Right? So think about that. That is the arch of his foot. He's got 2 feet here, and he can move forward and back. So when he's moving that way, that's like getting towards the ball of the foot, and move back a little bit, just locking in to get to the tail of the board. Same thing that we're doing within our foot when we're rocking. That's just a bigger arch.
We use a lot of heel for sure.
Right. Yeah. Because in snowboarding, a lot it's like, okay, get forward on the front foot. And the same thing will happen when you get on the ball of your foot. The board engages really well, but you lose the tail and it spins out and goes back uphill.
So how around the turn with your heel?
Right. So this movement, let's have you guys move in your boots here. I want you to feel ball of foot and then feel where's the point when you're moving along it and back. Where do you feel it just lock in before the talus there? How big of a movement is it? It's super tiny, isn't it? Like, look how much you're moving there to do that. Even look in his shins. It's not, so when you talk about changing that movement or how do you leverage or how do you get to the heel, look how tiny it is. And there's a lot of little different joints that you're using to do that, right? You can do it a little more actively, play with it in different, be a little more loose as you do it, right? Yeah, he's starting to go where I want to go. What I want you to do is I want you to play around with that conical, moving around left to right. Is that the stance you like? Start to feel in your boot now. Feel sort of the
want to be?
Yeah, where you're feeling the ball of the foot,
Yeah.
and just a little bit in front of the heel.
Yeah.
So start to move around in a circular motion, if you will. Does that start to feel like a turn?
I think when you're close to the
Yeah, right.
Right? So, and this is when we're talking about that cone of control. Now, the cone of control can get really large, but optimally, and one of the reasons skiers such as Michaela Schifrin are so successful, if you look at her upper body, it's very quiet because she's able to operate very efficiently in this circular, tinier cone of control. Now, there's going to be moments where you get thrown out of it, but you've got to try to bring it back. Yeah, so make your cone a little bit bigger with your upper body, like get it moving more dynamically, right? You can kind of feel it move around. You don't have to hold it. You can give yourself a little wider stance. They've got you. Believe me, you're not going to fall out of it. Yeah, and move. Keep moving. Keep moving. But keep moving. But keep moving. Yeah, keep moving around. Yeah, like you're skiing, and move around. And do you feel? And do you feel how when you come back to get to the heel a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
And if you go too far,
Yeah, oh, yeah. You definitely
if you go way back, do you feel that? Yeah.
feel it, yeah, way behind.
So this is a cool way to play with some things statically, right? In an indoor environment, if you will. You know, get a little more, can you get into your suspension, get a little lower into it? You're a little tall there. Yeah. Now move a little bit. Yep. Don't get too far forward within it. Fight for the feeling of just keeping it on the ball of your feet and maybe to the heel a little bit.
That's your natural stance too, isn't it?
He doesn't really have boot buckles.
No, but do you feel also, if you watch his shins inside of the boot, you see how they're moving in, it kind of becomes this, yeah, sensation, right? Yeah, as you would enter into a turn, you're able to feel the corner of the boot, you move around inside of it. Yep, and not too far, like there you're probably feeling almost forward of the ball of your foot, aren't you? You're probably on your toes, so bring it, don't go so extreme with it, make it smaller. So what's cool to do in playing with this is it's going to give you an idea of what you can then, when you go out onto snow, where you should fight for sensations, and knowing a little bit more of when you're in and out of position.
Now, I've got a question.
Sure.
So when we're doing this, does it change? Let's say like if you're on like a chimney peak, like I can go all the way to.
Steeper terrain?
Yeah, steeper terrain. Like, would you, like, where, I guess, like.
Do you move further? Yeah, sometimes then it's different things of intensity, the way you've got to move a little more quickly. You know, that the whole direction, intensity, rate, and timing of which you do it, it does change depending upon the type of turn you're making, right? But the feelings and sensations optimally in your foot, so you're talking about where your body moves and how far inside you move inside a turn, but that shouldn't change what happens down at your feet.
So would you also say that to be true, like when, let's say doing like, what do you call those, moguls?
Yeah, because you still don't want to be outside of that arch. The second you do, you're in an inefficient place. You're always fight. So the fight is to try to maintain within that center because you have a better place to operate to get tip to tail.
So basically, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So this cone, you're always wanting to be feeling pretty much the whole foot.
Yeah, I mean, now, well, you're gonna be moving. So, an instructor will say, "Get forward." Great, you got forward. You're forward for a moment at initiation, and then you continue to move.
Yeah, you
right?
need that heel to finish.
Right. So you move around your foot. One instructor compared it to a moving in sort of a horseshoe shape. Rob Bevere is one that said that. He's like, it's a lot like a horseshoe. You started it there and then you come back around up the other side, right? So you're kind of going through it, through the horseshoe on both, to get to both sides of your foot.
When you're trying to really carve an edge, it's a little,
Yeah.
no.
So
I feel like I'm obviously relying on.
you're relying on side cut then. If you're just rolling
Yeah.
and tipping and not moving, you're missing out on some things.
Makes sense.
Right? Because we can all just sort of do the railroad track turn, use the side cut, tip them, and let the ski do the work to an extent. Right? But you don't have a lot of options at that point.
Right. That makes sense.
This, because of your purposeful movement inside, how much, how, when, with what intensity, is going to depend upon how much you bend that ski. Then it's what you do once it's bending to stay in the most efficient place in your foot. Okay.
Yeah.
If they weren't standing, like, you gave that much motion, it edges the skis.
If they weren't standing on there, he wouldn't be able to, he'd fall over. Right, because we're in such a static.
Right.
You have the momentum, centrifugal and centripetal forces working for you.
Can I also ask when you're doing that movement, like obviously he's in static, but like, if you're thinking, because typically our students, hopefully, most of our students learn without poles at the beginning, so we're really working, like especially, like, I know when I teach like never evers, I'm really trying to get them to really like notice what their body's doing.
Sure.
But let's say you're let's say you're teaching like intermediate, and you're introducing poles. Wouldn't you necessarily think that as you're making that turn, that pole touch is now kind of, right?
Well, remember that the poles are very distracting in a lot of ways. We don't ski with our poles, we ski with our feet and legs. So the focus is on body parts first. You know, the poles are there for balance and timing and an idea of direction. Yes, exactly. They're our little antennas and our feelers, if you will.
So let me ask you this, like when you're, so like Michaela Schifrin or like Lindsey Vaughn, when they're going down those courses, they're really only using those poles to clip the gate? Like is that, or are they, so
It's balanced. And yeah, it's balance and timing. It's a feeler. It is.
Not balance, is it?
So-
They're not supporting that,
Yeah, you're not going to be able to lock into.
to know where they are in
So
space.
when you're balancing and you're like, if you want to stay on a foot, you know how you automatically do this with your arms?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like helping you get
Yeah.
find your, that's what the poles do as well.
Got
And
it.
also, they give you a sensation to your brain when it touches the snow without you looking.
Yeah.
It sends sensory up your arm, up to your brain in a split second. It tells you where you are in space.
Got it.
It lets you know how close you are to the snow, how tall you are throughout the whole turn.
And it's a point of, it is just like my outrigger. It's something, if I got a little too far inside, I can give it a little resistance.
Got it, okay.
I can just give it a little flick, and just that moment, that one little touch and gone, that gets me back to center or right in that spot. Why do you think we take poles away from so many people?
Get your
Got
weight
it.
into
Because they're trying to turn and they're trying to jab and
putting pressure on it.
right, they're not trying to work with their legs and feet.
Full turn, drive it.
You should never pressure your balls.
Because Elena skis with one.
I see what one pole.
We'll talk a lot more about a pole touch then.
Because, well, and I remember on our PSI, our level 1 exam, I remember you said something, and I do this now when I'm like free skiing, is I'll try to like touch it, but then, because I don't use it, I really try to like mimic what I'm doing with my left, with my right hand, and I sense that when even when I'm like in the bi-ski or like, you know, and I'm shifting my weight, I notice that I'm basically initiating a turn without the pole in essence.
Yep.
So okay, now it's the symmetry for.
But we'll get into some more pole things in a little bit, because they are one of the intriguing, and there's lots of different ways that people are using them, depending upon what the task is sort of at hand and how they can benefit you or harm your turn as well and your body movements. Just
I wanted to say too, when talking about outriggers, that I'm slowly learning how to snowboard, and I'm using an outrigger for balance because I can make
it's balance and
I can go on my toe, but I can't go on my.
and it's going to be different for you based upon your needs. So you're going to use a pole maybe a little differently in the sensory that it provides to you than the way that Mindy uses it, right? Because you have a different need out of it. Not that it's bad, but you can still make it efficient, but you're getting a greater amount of sensory out of it because of the needs and lack of function on one side and lack of feeling and touch. So now all of a sudden it's giving you another point. Yeah, exactly. You're getting something more out of it. Do any of you guys want to try to switch up and try this? Because I think it's kind of cool for you to feel.
So this will work for LJ too, if we understand?
Yeah, it will work for LJ too. So let's get into, we're doing multidiscipline, so you guys at snowboard. So let's get LJ and you guys can be on his. So you always hear about the twist in a snowboard, right? That's the one.
I think you're gonna have a lot of food today.
I know you guys were wondering, why am I having to bring all this equipment here with me, right?
You want him to face, yeah, why don't
Why don't you face everybody? Yeah.
we don't want to look at you. I'll look at you.
No goofy.
You got a big ding there on that new board.
You ride on the bottom, not on the top.
You don't ride goofy, do you, out there?
Hands are to watch everybody.
LG, you read Goofy?
No, he's fine.
You're trying to remember it?
But you're not.
Yeah, you can. I'll get out your way.
They call it switch. Oh, switch. Okay.
That's what
Switch.
Mindy and I just did, we switched.
Yeah.
With the bronze medal.
You can go, get a little more towards his tip.
I don't
Yeah.
want to stand, that's about as far as it goes before it comes off.
Okay.
I want to be.
Yeah.
Podium.
So, LJ, if you can kind of do your movement as you would go through a turn, as you move fore and aft a little bit. Can you kind of feel that there? Yeah. So, and even in his feet, when he's going through a turn and you're doing, can you go to ball and as you even return to your heel edge? It's the same thing, right? You're moving around the arch of your foot from ball to heel, moving sort of at a circular motion. Yeah. You're over exaggerating it right now. Yeah, because you're just trying to feel it. But do you get that same sensation you would in a turn as you move around it? And in your back, your high back, you're also moving from corner to corner as you move through the turn. Go through it, come back to me, come back to the heel of the board,
See, but you're moving more,
forward,
yeah, this way.
come back a little bit. Yeah. There, go, yeah. So,
Go over
I
there.
don't usually put that much on the back.
So
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
it's 1 foot?
maybe you could a little
He's
more.
gonna feel in two different places, the timing is different between 1 foot and the other foot, right?
So it's more, think more kind of like this. Let's go round. Yeah, come back, go around. There you go. See? So, yeah. Think hula dancing for me for a second. Maybe that'll help. Like, let's come around a little bit. Come around the whole movement. There you go. Keep coming around. There you go. A little bit more around. Now, do you also notice how your board's twisting there, too, when you're doing that, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
we can feel it, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
what- How much response you.
Yeah. And now let's try to make it a little smaller. Because it doesn't need to be as exaggerated as what you were doing. Feel that? Still going to have the same effect. That's more efficient in your body. You're still getting the same effect, right, with a smaller movement. Do you notice how his shins are still moving just the same way as Dick's were inside of his boots?
So the difference in a snowboarder, what he's referring to in twist, is that 1 foot and the other foot are doing something a little bit different. It twists the board a little bit like this. We don't do that with our skis well.
So from this side,
Always debatable.
it doesn't look like LJ is
That's too
coming
high.
toward me at all. He actually looks like he's on that side, his weight's on the back side of the board for me.
It isn't gonna single toe tap.
My angle, yeah, see now,
A little bit.
yeah, now he's coming more forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's also, where LJ is and where he's comfortable in his own snowboarding, too. It's just we're trying to play with where he can feel that he's moving forward and aft, right? And moving the board underneath him. It's kind of a cool
It
sensation.
really is, yeah.
But you picture
Yeah.
that as 1 foot, what he's doing.
Yeah. So like right there, you're very far forward into that front boot. Can you bring it back? You don't have to go necessarily that far, right? Even when you're carving, you probably don't quite go that far forward on your front foot. You're just playing with where your sensations are. You can be a little bit, can you do it a little more small? Make your cone smaller. Yeah, just come around. That's all it takes is to make a snowboard turn right there. Now your upper body's a little quieter, isn't it? Can you do it and keep your hands pointed to the tip of your board? Keep them there so that you're not twisting the upper body at all. Yeah, just do it from the legs. Feel that? Same movement, right? But a quieter upper body. Gets less twist going on in the upper body.
Your head up and now just feel it instead of looking at it and then make a movement without moving your body.
That portion was very interesting.
Thought about that, how you move along it, around from your heel to your front of your foot?
So there's the roll of skis at the back.
You kind of you move forward to initiate, and you come back to finish.
Right. And then right into the next one.
Yeah, and then right back forward. But it's not such a big movement that you're having to climb your way back into the turn, if you will, right? If you keep control over it, you're able to really stay inside your arch and have a lot of control over the ski. That's kind of what we're looking for. Let's have you guys, if we can take other yoga mats and you guys can all try it, but you can see how it makes sense even for a snowboarder within it too, being able to move fore and aft and play with this in a static position. You guys want to try it for each other then? If we can pair up in threes and we'll do it. Do we need to get more yoga mats? Yeah, we can jump off. Make sure you communicate when you're jumping off. So think around. Don't think just lean. Yeah, move kind of like this. Think you're a tornado. Yeah, start to feel that. Sure, but just kind of go around. And make sure that the pressures don't go too far forward of the ball of your foot and don't go behind your heel. Make it, if you go too far forward, you feel you're way out on your toes. Yeah, don't go that far.
Okay, so you don't want to be on your toes.
You don't want to be on your toes. You want to be a little bit on the ball. Yeah? So that's just enough pressure. And that quiets the upper body a lot, doesn't it? So here's the thing. If you move so forward and then you get stuck or locked there, you're so far forward that your ski tips engage and you lose the tail because you become, we call a heel hoverer. Because when you lean forward like that, yeah, when you get forward like that, do you feel your heel in the boot does it feel like it's almost up in the air?
My heel.
Yeah, you don't want that.
So use just your legs now.
Yeah, just a tiny bit. It's a smaller weight shift than you realize. Yeah, still move around, but it's tiny. That's all it is. Maintaining that amount of movement within it. You don't need to over-exaggerate it.
We need to be a little back at the end.
Do this at home in your living room.
So when you get forward like that, what would happen is the tip is there. If you think that your heel is lifting, in essence, that's doing the same thing to your tail of your ski. It's lifting it up off the snow. So the tail loses edge pressure and is more likely to slip out, or it makes it very easy to pivot, but it loses pressure. Because you're bent here and the tail gets straight. We're trying to keep the whole thing bent from the middle. So we have to do a lot through movements, right?
Because even if I start with them inside and they're in their shoes, just getting them to move their hips just a little bit, it brings you into that position. And then
Here's the problem is getting the message to somebody that cognitively maybe can't decipher. So we have to come up with either tools that we're trying to get them into that position,
right.
different tasks, different environments that we put them in.
Right, but is that seems to work for me, gently moving that hip, belly button, and just holding it, and I can feel it free. And I've been trying to do that with swing, because you can actually give them a little push.
I mean, I find a lot that, when you're talking DD students and whatnot, that if you're trying to teach the wedge too early, I'd rather go more into almost a direct to parallel.
I don't try to teach them. I let the wedge develop in the lift line.
It happens on their own naturally, but don't make it a part of the learning progression because they may lock into that movement pattern and never get out.
That's because
But it's all student to student.
this and just trying this just a little bit, just a very gentle, and they're in a good
The importance for here is that you understand what the movement optimally can be. The hard part is conveying that message.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So letting you understand how important it is in your own skiing, where what's too much forward, what's too much back, and how to start to think about how you use that heel a little bit in this smaller cone of control, right?
Just making that more gentle movement the last 2 years helped me ski better.
Sure. It doesn't have to be a big forward or a big in the front of the boot type of movement. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that. It can, yeah. And it continually moves. It doesn't forward and stay there. All right. Did everybody get a chance to do it yet? All right.
You start well, and then you come backwards, and then you rotate.
Is your horseshoe this way or this way?
No, it's more, the heel is the back of the horseshoe, yeah? Yep. We are done. Yeah, you guys can clip out.
Mindy's got to start all over again.
That's good luck.
Yeah.
So you're never feeling More pressure on the ball?
No, you can no, you feel the ball. You still feel the ball of your foot, but you're moving through it. You move to it on one side, and then you come back, and then you come back again.
That's like a perfect idea. So the,
Because you need to go to little toe. You need to go to little toe and big toe, right?
And we just said that, little toe, big toe. When you were here, I was saying, remember?
Right. So if you started a turn onto your little toe here, right? You moved forward in this way a little bit, right? And then as you're finishing the turn, you start to come back through the back of the horseshoe, and then forward to the big toe on that.
so I'm never doing that.
Yeah, you're going round. Remember we talked about a cone? So it's
Right.
So
The
it's
cone is all the way around.
I know, but it's the idea that it goes up one side and comes back the other. Right? Because you don't
Right, I
you
guess I just thought it was on the ball of the foot.
because you're changing toes and sides. Right? So you kind of move up, and as that tip engages, then you got to get to the heel. So you start to come back, but you're coming to the other
I gotta do
side.
this on snow.
Also, your skis are going to be slightly forward at the beginning. Your right foot's going to be forward at the beginning of the turn, and then you come back to even.
And then move through, and yeah,
It's a horseshoe.
I was saying to Jack, I feel like what I've been working on for the last, like, 15 years since, whatever. It's just that you can see some of the mass diagonal, whatever. And I don't, right, but I always think about it coming from here, but now I'm thinking I should be thinking about it, like, thinking about what I'm doing on my feet more than what I'm doing just yet. Don't take.
yeah. I mean, it starts down here. You know, the concept of individual leg steering and where the movement comes from is usually pretty hard for a lot of people to grasp, especially when we're talking about where skiing comes from. We're talking about from the femur in the hip socket. You can see it right now. Look at the individual amount of leg steering Mary Ellen's able to get. These are called spoons. These were put out by Burton a long time ago in their Learn to Ride series, and you would bring these around to schools and whatnot to show them how skiing, and you can use these for snowboarding as well in a little different way. But we like them a lot because they pivot really well for skiing. You can see how we can teach leg rotation really easily with them. So we can start with your right leg just to show and how far it goes, right? There you go. So I also want you guys, just as we're doing this with her legs, and I'm going to introduce a concept to you that's going to carry on throughout our day, is that when we talk about equipment, is that outriggers are legs and feet. All right? Anybody agree with that? Want to argue it? Yeah? They really mimic a lot more that's going on with our legs and feet than I think people realize. They're not just a pull or a pull touch. They do what Mary Ellen's doing right now when she turns her right leg and she turns that outrigger and it has friction against the snow. That's what it's doing for me or for a bi-skier or a 3-tracker or a 4-tracker. Only difference is with a 3-tracker and 4-tracker, they have legs that are working for them as well. So it's a little bit more of a complement. For the bi-skier and the mono-skier, because their ski is locked straight underneath them, it's a more important interaction with the snow to create that, to get the friction started.
Would you agree though that a 3-tracker or 4-tracker is putting way more weight on those outriggers than a...
Not optimally. Not optimally. They shouldn't. And it all depends upon the disability, right? Optimally, they should try to be as light as they possibly can on them. And a 3-tracker, as they're becoming better, little to none. It's really about...
I would think it would be uniformly more as a beginner and for any discipline, unless, right, would you say?
Well, yeah, because they're trying to find balance. For anybody in the beginning, when you're trying, you put more weight on things because you're, just like your training wheels, right? You're tipping on them, you're putting more weight on them until you find your center and you find your balance point. And once you find that, then you become more comfortable in how you can be lighter and lighter and lighter on those.
You might need a little more pressure.
Yeah, I'm going to have you guys try these things out for a minute too, just so you can start to play with. We can pass them out. You want the box? I'll give you the box.
These are slide discs of these.
You can try it too from the ski. Gonna make you a skier for a second too then.
Plastic side goes down, and this can go on the, not on the mat.
Not on the mat, yeah.
And use your poles if you want to balance. Be careful.
Written side up.
Plastic side down, written side up, right?
What's that?
Feel for those same sensations we were talking about a little bit ago on your, where you're fighting for, being in the center of your arch and feeling the whole foot. On both feet at the same time, not just one and then the other. So find the center for them, or if you have to move the disc in relationship to it, but try to get that same sensation that it's not having to be on the ball of your foot, that's in the center. Yeah, and you shouldn't have to push it. Do you feel it in the center, or you feel like, I feel like you're more on your heel. Yeah.
Some of the food like punching the.
You don't want to feel, try to just pivot right from the center. Try to be right in the center of your arch to do it. But you have weight over it, or are you having to unweight? Yeah. Your stance is really wide right now. Can you bring him a little closer? And then try it. There you go.
If you try the disc closer to the ball of your foot, you get more slide. Like Mindy has.
Yeah, but you don't want to be there, do you?
Don't think about.
Well, this is what I'm.
Find where you can rotate easiest from. Is it, well, but when you do that, are you having to lean way forward in your boot? Is it all the pressure on your, okay, on your ball? Try to do it more from the center.
A little easier.
And you may want your poles.
I feel like they don't turn as.
Those may not, let's try these.
These like feel.
Try the spoons, but don't do them on the mat. Get them on they'll pivot easier. Yeah, if you guys get a chance, let's pass the spoons around a little bit.
I'm finding with
Because they pivot a little more easily.
My left side feels like.
I'm finding I'm spending more time not wanting to fall flat on my ass with those.
With those, but they help you find.
Oh yeah.
But where's that pressure?
Well, when I started, right now it's more.
On your arch, right? That's what I want.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can also play with how you move around on that.
Well, right. That's. You go back on your heels like that.
If you go too far, right? That's going back too far.
It just comes together.
You go.
Sure.
I felt that sensation.
It's a small movement. If you make it big, that's where you run into problems. It's a small, very subtle, isn't it?
So
You have the steering.
starting my. But I want to start my turn.
Then the force is going to be the same.
It doesn't feel like coming back a little. Doesn't feel like finishing a turn to me.
Well, because there's no tail there.
Okay.
Because you're on a round, so it's very tiny. Yes. You don't have a tip and tail now.
I need to go to New Jersey.
You guys, since you're on that, if you guys can watch Mindy for a second, you can see in her, just from an MA standpoint. So one thing that I like to talk a lot about is open joints versus closed joints. So let's look at where, get in your somewhat athletic stance, get in the spot you want to be. Those are wider, so they're a little tougher to work within, and also because you're tinier. So
It does kind of, because they rock, it does sort of really force you to find
center.
yes, yeah.
Yes, you do. So that's why if everybody can kind of jump in those at some point here, it'd be great. But okay, I want you to move around the ski a little bit, like forward, aft, finding your center. Now you can tell when she's really in balance because her joints are constantly staying flexed a little bit. Go back a little too far for me one time. You see how her knee almost extended out a little bit?
When I feel like I've got a lot of tension on the top of my foot.
You do, yeah, because you're trying to hold yourself off the heel, right? And also what happened there too is that your ankle opened up. You can't see it as much in the hard boot, but your ankle,
But you're right, yes.
so your ankles, when we talk about being able to flex them, you don't want an open ankle is bad. We always want them to have some tension over them. So if you can you do an excessive lead change for me for a moment? So put your left or foot forward of that, like slide it forward. See there, if she went too far forward, do you see how that opened up her left ankle? The other one, and then you're striving to get pressure with the outside ski of your right leg, but your left leg has lost all the pressure. And that gets into the whole thing of directing pressure to the outside ski. So when you get too much of a lead change, it opens up a joint, meaning usually your inside ski
I
there.
don't know what's too much.
Pull it back.
Like partway.
Pull it back a bit.
What does opening up the joint mean?
Opening up means, so like if you think about your ankles where it is flexed and has pressure over it, versus, now if you put one foot further out in front of the other, keep going further with it a little bit. So you see this happen a lot. You feel how the pressure, a lot of pressure on that ankle, a lot of flexion, very little on this one,
Okay.
right? So you've lost, in essence, you've lost power and the ability to steer over that leg.
Unless you drive that knee forward.
Right, but you can only do it, try to push that one forward and then try to drive the knee forward. It's still not the same or matching that one, right? They become
I
one's
feel like I have
too
a bigger
open.
lead change in this all the time.
You probably do at times, right? But that's what a lead change that's too large is going to affect your ability to pressure the outside ski. And you end up balancing more because you're trying to get pressure to it. So you are shoving it back to get pressure over that ankle.
So your ankle can only do,
So much, right?
it goes
So how does that affect the
this
next
way
turn?
and
The
this.
next turn, it's delayed and it ends further down, not at the top of the turn.
Closed.
Got it.
So in order for you to open it against the boot, everything else has to straighten out too.
Outside foot back, and just slide the inside foot forward. Knee.
Yes, don't slide yes, you want it to be more underneath the other fundamental of feet underneath your base of support. You will have the ability, if you put that other foot, put it out there for a second and try to steer it, it's hard. Pull it back underneath you, now steer it. Much easier, right? Right, so if you get too much of this going on, you lose more options, right? So some people have used the example for me of thinking of your feet having Velcro on them and it pulled, so when you're going through the turn, you're pulling yourself through it by pulling that inside ski back a little bit.
Okay, well, I would put
Yeah, that was it.
the outside ski back.
Well, if you push that back and then the other one goes forward, then you're losing that. Then you're,
Your hips are forward. Nice.
but you need to keep this still underneath your base. It's too far. So pull this one back. So yes, but on that, when you're that far back with it, try to rotate it. It's harder. Now, if you can bring them a little closer underneath, they're both going to be able to turn more easily. So the lead change, it doesn't have to be a lot. People make it too much and they lose options or delay in the turn.
The knees.
Well, because you're not skiing with the knees, you're skiing with turning, right? It's not edging of the knees. It's turning of the feet to get the knees to get into.
You know, when I'm turning, I think that.
No, think steering.
Okay, all right.
Steering to get. And if you just tuck a knee, you're going to end up with an A-frame, or one knee in and the other one's not. Yep. Cool. If you don't understand what you should be feeling in your feet and what optimally where we should be evolving a turn from, it's hard to get there.
We don't talk about our feet a lot. We talk about the core and make sure you're.
Well, here's the thing is we throw out a lot of quick hit terms without the coaching and not that we need to have a lot of explanation behind it, but we need to be able to do it in a way that we're getting the point across. Because when I go to a group of instructors or even a group of students that have been skiing for a while, And they'll say, well, what are you working on? And they always come to me and they say, I'm working on getting forward. And they don't say anything more than that. They're just saying they're working on getting forward. Well, what does that mean? I mean, yes, it's better to be forward than all the way back. Because if the lesser of two evils, it's always better to be more forward than back.
But what does it mean and how are you doing it? Like,
There you go.
what is your body to make it?
There you go. And that's where a lot of instructors, their level of understanding stopped, right? They understand that they've been told to get forward, they've been told to have their shins in the front of their boots, but there's nothing known beyond that, right? I don't want to say there's nothing known beyond that, but it's just, that's where they say, well, as long as your shins are in the front of the boot, you're going to have a good time. Well, here's the cause and effects of that. We get forward in our boots, we get our shins into it. When you initiate a turn and you stay in the front of your boot, you pivot really easily, right? You are on that ball of that foot. It's very easy to turn. And when you think about a lot of skiers, let's think about a bunch of people we've seen and maybe even ourselves. When we start a turn, there's a difference between starting a turn where we edge, initiate, we bend the ski here at the top of the turn, we feel the whole foot flex at the side of the turn. This is the way I think, because I don't have feet to be able to think about. I think if I run my hand through an arc or through a turn, I start it at the ball of the foot is where I initiate. I feel that pressure there. And as that engages the tip and it starts to bend the ski and move around the arc, then I feel actually the whole arch of my foot as it gets to the side of the turn flex, right? Because it's under pressure, just like the ski has camber, so does your arch. It's getting flexed like this. And then as I exit, if I'm trying to run my hand through this arc, don't I have to get to my heel? If I don't, this is what happened. This is the ball of my foot. When I start it, only way I can get there is if I do this. So how many skiers do you see that start a turn, they start to tip it, they're like, I don't like this feeling of moving into space, and they steer real quickly and pivot out of it. That's because they stay forward all the time and never get to the tail. So they oversteer, they initiate, they oversteer and engage. Start to tip, oversteer and engage. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you guys do have that feeling, right? Especially on steeper terrain. And it doesn't matter whether that's a snowboard, it doesn't matter. It's this moment of, that is scary moving down that way. I don't trust that my edges are engaged and are going to support my body being inclined and then starting to angulate into that turn, and my feet and my board are over here. That's the scariest feeling of trust in the world.
And the shape of your turn is affected.
Right. So we're very impatient, most skiers. I think this is the number one problem that I see in most staff, and is that they rush the top of the turn. They're not patient enough in that movement to let the skis do what they need to do, which is to move inside against them, to bend them, engage, and finish the turn. They end up over-rotating, oversteering, over-pivoting, and a lot of that comes back to the reason that I spent so much time on that is they've been told to get forward, and that's where they live. And nobody ever talks about the rest of the foot or how do you engage the heel. Got it? Yeah. All right. So it's just next time you are out on snow, I just want you to be thinking about those sensations we kind of went through there. I think of ball, hole, heel. And it's not behind the heel. It's feeling that glide, that lock-in, that engagement. And as you feel that engaged, you've got to be on top of it to be moving towards the next turn.
So what do you do? All of our skis have a turn radius on them, right? Sure. So what do you do if the turn you have to make is shorter than the turn radius of your skis?
Well, it becomes a brushed. It's not everything is full on carving, locked in edges. That's not reality of working in the skiing environment, because every turn is its own new situation, right? So it's our adaptability to what's in front of us. So yeah, there's going to be a moment where you're going to have to do something happen. You're going to have to go to a very flat ski, pivot it, steer it quickly, just because of what's in front of you. Right, it is. But then if you think optimally what you want to get back to, right, and we can't do railroad tracks down every trail. When you're on a black diamond steep, you are not railroad track skiing, I am sure. But you're carving still. Yeah, you're just, and depending upon what turn radius and what type of ski, you're still making a round. We're looking for what the track looks like. You know, that you've changed edges above and before the fall line. You've seen that it's starting to bend. It can still be skidding, right? But it's staying round in its arc. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I wish I had talked over something, but, where in this turn do you start thinking about getting off, back, more towards the ball as so you finish the turn, you come back on the 100 ball.
right. So when you have felt the skis moving, they're usually going in the opposite. They're going this way. Say I'm getting ready to make my right. I've just finished a left.
Yeah, where's your body?
My body's going there, right? So my skis are going this way. I have to then get them to roll over, right? So they're still finishing. They're coming by me moving that direction. They change edges and can then start to bend above and before the fall line. But I have to make a commitment while they're still tracking, in essence, in that moment of glide.
You're going forward as you're initiating the turn.
Yeah, not forward with my equipment, forward towards the direction apex and next.
Wayne Long, you ever see the way he's up here and his body's falling down that way?
That's every World Cup skier. I mean, we can look at lots of high-end skiing, but this also happens at a very low. We can dumb it down a lot too. When we go right back down to the wedge, the reason that we use the wedge, and we can get into the wedge Christie, and why that's so important for development of skiers, is because all the wedge is doing is giving you a training wheel from which to change edges above the fall line because it's flat. So I'm making a turn to the right. I've come out of it. I'm able to edge this one, still keep this one a little flat, create a little sense of security because it's like, oh, and then I feel that outside ski bend, engage. It hooks up, and then you're like, oh, that feeling pretty good. I can trust that. And then you allow the inside ski to then transition. So it's like a 1-2, it's a delay in it, but it's allowing you to trust for a moment that I'm actually on this edge, my body's moving, starting to move this way across the equipment, and then I can get it involved, right? And then change edges. So it's this little crutch of a training wheel. It's a lot like an outrigger is gonna be for a bi-skier because they start to move, get that turn, but they've got some stability here to be able to trust that they can move inside, right? And that outrigger is usually pretty flat at that point or has a lot more weight on it when they're learning because they're trying to learn how much they can move without just tipping over, right? Or moving too far. Got it? All right.
There's a lot of slides there.
I know there are. I know. Well, we went in pretty in-depth with that, and I want to be able to get to equipment and whatnot, but the main thing for me when we talk about movement analysis for you guys today was that we could have a foundation that you really understood what feelings you're fighting for and how much to move, and that maybe it's a smaller move than you had ever imagined. And it's going to help you guys in sort of the understanding. If you understand it within yourselves, then it's much easier to translate into adaptive equipment. We can't just spend all this time on setup and fitting. I mean, it's all important. But if you don't understand what you're trying to accomplish with your adaptations and what you're optimally trying to achieve in your coaching, we're probably not going to get there. Because I see a ton of, every sit skier makes the same problems that we're talking about here. They're told to get forward and they're told to reach downhill with an outrigger. Anybody ever coach that? I know you have. It's okay to say it. Because I see it all the time, and yeah, open the door or lean or move the app. So I hear these things, but it goes back to the thing I started with before is it's what you see. It's what you've seen in the video. You've seen other sit skiers doing this, and in your head you built a progression and you built an idea of how, well, if I was doing that, I see them doing this. But we haven't really talked about what's going on there or what they should be doing to make it more like what we just kind of went through. How can we get them to change edges up here, move inside, have stability, and not have to go to a big over-rotated quick turn. Because you see it with sit skiers and bi skiers and all kinds of our skiers out there. They're not patient enough at the top of the turn. Yep, and it comes down to the same things. They're trying to get forward. It's scary to move that direction. I'm on one ski, and I'm like, ooh, I don't want to get there, so I do a big move so that I rush through it. It gets all my weight forward. I'm up on the tip. It rotates, pivots, and then it engages. And you end up being very heavy at the bottom of your turn and not smooth and fluid.
Some of you remember that drill that we did, which I think we picked up in training a long time ago, where we were taking our time to feel the flat in between every turn. So you're finishing a turn, and as you're engaging into the new one, you had to hang there in a second where the skis were, where am I going to go into the next turn, and try to find it and count. Remember?
Yeah. It's kind of the sensation of, we'll call it 2-4-2, right? If you've ever heard that sensation, but it's sort of delaying that moment in transition, and then you're kind of squirrely because there's no pressure over it. It's just flat, and the skis can go all over the place. But we're trying to make that transition a little more efficient is what we're at. But anyway, so this slide here, control relationship center mass to the base of support and direct pressure along the length of the ski. We just went through a lot of that right now. Yep, how you can use the whole ski. One of my favorite sayings is I don't know, somebody said to me a long time ago, you paid for the whole ski, use it. So it is true. Right. And I think we forget about that, especially when we use this term, get forward, get forward, get forward. Let's talk a little bit more about the tail of the ski and how we can use it. Yeah. Because it's not one or the other. It is a movement of continual movement to move tip to tail. So some definitions, just some things to be thinking about. I know you hear these terms thrown out all the time. Angulation, inclination, centripetal force, edge angle, center of mass, base of support. Those are terms for us, not for the students, okay? You really, I think it's a little bit okay to talk about angulation, like people can get what angles are, but you really need to define what angulation versus inclination is. And that's inclination's banking, you guys, right? Means inclination is banking, meaning that you're tipping into the turn without any angles in your body. And it's the angles that help keep you more over your ski, create better edge pressure. If you incline all your turn, every turn is started with inclination, but you use inclination to get to angulation. And then it's the variety of how much, when, where, what the conditions under your feet are, how much you want to use it, what you're trying to get out of a turn. Racers use, I was talking to Bodie one time, he's like, an inclinated turn is faster all day long than an angulated turn, which it is, right? But what he says, it's risk versus reward. Right? You do it at the wrong time, wrong place, wrong snow conditions, you're going to have a bad day. And it's one of those things that you use these things when and where, and in racing, everything's on the table. So we don't always, racing has some optimal things that you're striving for, but they're constantly getting in and out of them and using them at different points to gain more speed. So we look at it as an instructor, we're trying to gain like this sort of, perfection, but when we get into rough environments, we want to be able to have all those tactics at our disposal too. But we just sort of, even when you're training, you're trying to work towards the optimal, and then there's the reality of the outdoor environment and what the mountain brings at you.
I think about the risk part is thinking about those in inclination is that without angulation is full extension. So all your joints are extended. When you're in full extension, there's nowhere to go this direction. Mm-hmm. So if you have a little bit in reserve everywhere, in an emergency risk situation, you can still go either direction. Yeah. But if you're fully extended, fully inclined, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, there's
get ice there, and
yeah, and you can, and that's the whole thing we were talking about, getting tall. If you're all extended, and that gets into the open joints versus closed joints. Is if everything gets too tall and too long, there's no pressure over the joints, things get loose. You want to be in your suspension a little bit, which allows you to, the angulation allows you to have pressure over those joints and more centrally over the center of the ski. If you start to just tip in, you're too far away from things, you get too long, and you're more likely to just fall over, especially if you hit something that has a little bit of slipperiness to it. You know, you hit an icy patch, things are going to shoot away from you. The other thing is to always keep moving. So the analogy for me are slinkies. If you guys ever play with those as a kid, once you send it down the staircase, what happens? It keeps going. It never stops. Your body should be a slinky. Nobody makes a turn and then hangs out and like, oh, thank God that's over, right? Right. But that's where we run into problem, is that we want to be always like a slinky, constantly moving, flexing and extending, just like when you see it roll over down to the next staircase and the next staircase and the next staircase. It's constantly flexing and extending. And you guys that are into music, we had talks about this last night. I compare it to an accordion, the squeeze box, right? What happens when you stop? Music stops. You're always flexing and extending the accordion to keep the music going. And that's very much like what we have to be doing in skiing all the time, constantly flexing and constantly extending. We never, like I said, you don't finish a turn and go, whoo, and then just hang out and just lock your joints out. It's a constant moving through. If you feel yourself camp out or get rigid or stiff, do something. Move.
I took a lesson this year, and he literally said to me, like, do that even when you don't have to.
Yes.
Just to keep dynamic and, yeah, and not.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can fall into what I call the lazy ski instructor mode, because I see instructors, they get tired, they're not skiing in a dynamic way out behind their students, and they're working with them, and they're just out there on their equipment, they're just standing on it. I know you just see a lot of recreational skiers because they don't know what to do. They make a turn, and then they're like, okay, now I'm on them. They just glide it out. They don't know what else to do with their body in between turns. So they stop moving, and it becomes this really rigid, very tall, very undynamic look. It's a very lazy approach to the sport.
Lazy, taking that a step further, is that we're generally teaching lessons where we don't have poles, and you go to grab that run and you're too lazy to grab your own poles, so you go do a run without your poles. That's when the static happens on the hill while you're doing that run, because you don't put your hands and your body in the right position where your hands would be. And I see the hands down here, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's a tip for you. Even when you're teaching, or you're always be thinking about your turns, always be thinking about your movement, always be thinking about what you do. Even in those moments of when you're constantly, every turn is your chance to learn. There was one of my ski instructors said to Robin Barnes one day, so he's like, well, you know, it's easy for you. You just do it. And she like pulled him aside. If she could have, she probably would have slapped him and jacked him up against the wall and said, she goes, I work at my turns every single time. I never let go of them. I never. Forever. Like,
that's the dilemma of once you come into this world to teach and to pass on. When was the last time that you were taking a free run, other than Dick, and just thinking about how much fun it is?
Right. But even when, so it's about skiing with a purpose, right? And this is, well, it's either good or bad, but once you've come into this world and you start to understand about what you're doing in skiing, I'm sorry, it's never going to be the same again. Yeah, even you're on the lift, every run you're making, you are working at your turns, and you should be. I mean, I don't even know how to make a run that is fun without thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish. And if I'm getting a sensation that doesn't feel correct, I'm changing it. So in every run I take, it's a learning experience. And whether I'm behind somebody, I'm trying to feel where my balance is, where my center is, when I'm engaging the ski. And it just becomes such a natural, it's not exhausting. It's a part of how I evolve as an athlete, and it's constant. And it never goes away.
That's what makes the sport so cool, is that every day you come to a new environment. Yeah. And there's going to be something new that you have to do with your body to react to the environment that you're in, that you chose to be in.
It's a terminal disease.
It is. What's your question there?
Design in the art of motorcycle maintenance, he talks about seeing the tree, not a tree. because your mind projects what a tree is. It fills in the blanks, instead of seeing that particular tree and that branch and everything. Same thing with a turn versus the turn.
Right. There's not just one turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the turn, not a turn.
Yeah. Yeah, the turn that you want to make, right? That's really what it is. You know, so you're constantly working towards what you want to make that turn be. Yeah. And that's, once you do that, you're on a really good learning pathway for the rest of your life, really. It is addicting, like you said, it's terminal. So you'll never get rid of it. And it's not bad, and it's not exhausting. It's really fun. It's a good sensation. And it takes a whole nother level to the sport that I think a lot of people miss out on. Because recreational skiers, I've had some great skiers come to me, young kids who, solid racers, but they don't understand where the movements come from. And I ask them that question about, how do you turn a ski? And they're like, I don't know, I just do it. So because they can't verbalize what they are physically doing to then help or teach anybody else, right? They just do something, right or wrong. They've just been doing this thing forever that they're not even thinking about the rhyme or reason or way to improve it, and it just becomes the thing without any kind of a place to grow. And it's always growing. It's just anybody that does golf or does any other sport at a high end where it takes some intricacy, that's where skiing is, and you should think of it that way.
So I asked the 5-year-old what she does, and she said, just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, and that's your audience, right? Yeah. We talked about pull touches a little bit within it, but what they are.
Geoff, do you find that when you're teaching, like, versus, like, if you're, like, trying to explain how to make a turn to, like, let's say, like, a 5 or 6-year-old versus, like, a 13 or 14-year-old?
Completely different in every...
Like, I guess, how would you approach that, like, in a 5, like...
In a 5, you do it through movement and doing and putting them in the right environment, so you're going to teach them the movement that you're trying to do. You don't want to spend a lot of time explaining. You want to do it more through showing, putting them in the right terrain that's going to make them put their feet in the right places. You can do games, you can do, jumping and tapping, and I mean, there's a list of, so instead of having heavy explanation, you use the right drills and tasks. And when they're ready, you may be able to explain to them, or they ask.
That's our little toolbox.
It's not...
With the student, pick a tool that relates to what you want to accomplish in the goal for that day, whether it's wedge turns or wedge crispy or whatever. Pick a game, a tool, whatever, to make it fun. They don't have to know all this stuff. You do.
We're being very cerebral about skiing because, like, right now we're getting in depth. Maybe for some of you this is like, oh my gosh, it's very technical. I never wanted to know that much about skiing in my life. Shut up, Geoff. But it's important to have a foundation from which to build. And that is not going to be, when I said don't use those terms of angulation and centripetal force and all that to your students, that I really mean that. We learn by going out and playing and experimenting and doing. The more time you spend working with that, the better lesson you're going to have. We are guilty as ski instructors of loving to pull off on the side and have a group there and have a 20-minute discussion. Right? Yeah. And we've all been guilty of it, because then you get in a group like this and just like we spent a lot of time on some things this morning because you guys had a lot of questions. And it's not bad, but when we're out in the skiing environment, we shouldn't try to digest everything, because these things spawn questions and ideas and concepts that you want to explore. And you guys, and I'm here for a short amount of time, and you're trying to get the most you can out of me, so everybody wants to ask a question. And that's great, but when we're out there, we got to keep the topic a little smaller and not try to, and part of this I think we're guilty of. Let's say you've been in a private lesson, right? Or you paid for a clinic. You want to get all that money out of that clinic that you possibly can, right? You're like, I got to get my money's worth. But sometimes maybe the fact that we had this short discussion this morning and we spent a lot of time on it was better than what we covered, like everything about adaptive skiing. Because I get that. We're like, what do you want to cover today? And in a clinic, and they're like, I want to do it all. And I know, Mindy, you've been there at different clinics at National Academy, and we get the group out there and like, what do you want to accomplish this week? And they're like, I want to do 3-track, I want to do 4-track, I want to do monoski, I want to do bi-ski, and we're going to do VI guiding. And it's like, whoa, but sometimes it's better, like, can you have a concept within all that that really hits on all of them, and it's a smaller.
Well, I'll go to a clinic, say just a day, on a day clinic on personal skiing, and there's 10 people in it or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, early on, I'm like all attentive, and as soon as I'm starting to get something, and as soon as I start to notice my mind not paying attention, I'm like, all right, well, I've gotten what I need, sometimes I'll tune out on purpose. I mean, I'm not distracting, but I tune out on purpose to not take more than my brain wants to process.
Right, but I think that's what happens is we try to, in a lesson in particular, because.
But the instructor's saying might be working for somebody else, you know what I mean?
Right.
More than one person in the group.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe they weren't paying attention to what your needs were.
Right. Well, yeah, right. That's the beauty of doing a private lesson, right?
Yes.
Well, I know too, like with our lessons, I'm normally with the very young kids, which I love. But like a lot of like what they say in our training, so like, besides like being safe and like it's like the main goal of that lesson is to have fun. Like yes, there's the teaching aspect, but then there's also like, and I really learned this like this past season, is like a lot of our kids or clients are on the spectrum. So you not only are trying to teach like a fundamental, but then the other layer of that is trying to handle it in a way that'll kind of make the child focus, but also having a good time at the same time and having them be safe. So it's like sometimes, like for me, like especially with the young ones, I'll just hold their hand, and if that's what they want for the 2 hours and they just want to go down the hill, like that's what I'm gonna do. But like once I get kids that are like, okay, I've had them for a few times now they're starting to get their turns, and now I'm progressing them up to the next hill. That's where I feel like using that toolbox, but also trying to like incorporate these terms without getting that in their own way.
I can't give you an answer to it because there is no answer to it. Yeah. Each student is different in their needs in that moment. So it's your own creativity. It's knowing the student well enough to know what's going to set them off, what's going to be successful, and always keeping it fun. And that's regardless if we're sitting here with you guys. We're trying to keep it fun and interactive, and that's why I loved it. We could actually do something that was physical for a while where you were moving your bodies, and we didn't just click through a bunch of slides and throw definitions out, right? We actually got you guys to think about in a fun manner, and that's the way any clinic should be. And to keep the topic small enough that you can deep dive into it and not try to vomit the whole entire manual out in one clinic, right? Because
everybody learns differently, so you have.
Right. I'd rather fine tune it. I'd rather fine tune it and have people gain a little bit more. Not that they're going to master the skill, but they are in that pathway to a deeper understanding of the part that we're working on. And that's where sometimes progressions we become a little guilty of them, especially if you guys are going for your next levels in certification. And what we've changed within PSIA Aussie is that we're looking at real teaches. We're looking at, so you see a problem. I don't care that you have 3 different tasks that you would like somebody to do. I care that they were able to proficiently do the first task and that you coached appropriately within it to some manner of success, because that's real teaching. We don't have to do, a straight run, a J turn, and then link turns. If they were having trouble with the J turn, I would be looking for that you actually knew what to try to work on to try to get a better J turn. That's the idea behind this. Progressions are still great because they're gonna do the straight run and they're gonna get the J turn, and now we need to link turns. And if those all are working the way they should, we can get there. But if you don't see a success, it doesn't mean just because we tried the J turn, we gotta go. Until you get it to a place that you feel comfortable with, or they're starting to see some success, spend some time on it. And then I'm looking for your depth of knowledge in how to make changes, not just that you can regurgitate straight run, J turn, linked, right? I mean, that's not, you know what you want to see, but did you know how to coach them to get to each of those in a successful manner?
Or like if you're not observing that you're like not mastery per se, but like some level of proficiency.
Yeah.
And then I think by the end of the lesson, they send them off on the way, now they're gonna go practice that and they're doing it wrong. And then, you know,
Right.
like, so then they're gonna be incorporating.
Yeah, and it also doesn't have to be perfect. So I've seen some instructors go like, they'll sit there working on whatever type of wedge turn, and the student's bored to death. Like, you got to move on at some point, right? The fun part, like it's.
What sensation they're feeling to know this is successful, so that they can keep doing it.
So that they can keep moving forward. Yeah.
I think one of the things that happens in adaptive, and we do all these 2-track lessons, the majority are 2-track.
They are.
And we tend to want to rush them to be able to navigate on a higher trail and faster speed. And what ends up happening is that we touch them or put a piece of equipment on them or give them a pole or a ski pal or something like that. And we feel like the hero because they're able to go up and down that trail and maybe move to the next trail up. But you have compromised their balance by doing that, and you haven't taught them the foundations. So every time you touch a student, you're messing with their own intrinsic way of being able to move their feet underneath them.
And work.
Yeah, it's kind of that equipment light. You use it as lightly and you introduce it and slowly pull it away. Just like you were talking about using your hand, right, to hold their hand. Great way to build kind of confidence and trust because it's a new scary environment. But at the same time, you got to be trying to pull it away all the time. Don't let that become the thing. And then you're like, oh, we can go up the lift now.
Yeah.
Before the hand hold is sort of becoming less.
But I've always wondered too, like, when is it appropriate to introduce the lift? Because, like, I mean, fortunately, like.
When they're ready.
But here's the thing, like, so at Jiminy, we have the, what do you call it, the magic carpet. So, and they do have I mean, if they really don't want to do like the lift, they can do the magic carpet, but is it, sometimes sometimes it's literally just taking them up a hill. Like I've done some pretty good, I've gotten very good at running kids up a hill and you know, like pushing them up the hill and then just taking them down like a little port.
Every hill is different. Every kid is going to be different in what you're going to have to introduce. And maybe you're going to have to first run up, you're going to try it with a bamboo pole to give them some confidence. And then you're like, okay, I'm using it a little less on this one. You know, so it's just always with the idea of how you take it away, right? And you can use these tools once you think they're at a good place. They've got the foundational skills, like Marilyn said, right, to go up. But now they're not in a little scarier environment. You might have to reintroduce it again for the first one, give them the confidence, and then take it away. Yeah, you never know. All right.
Always have a plan to take it away.
Gotcha.
Yep, 3 skills.
I've had students that will say to me, Kevin, I want the tethers on. I say, why? Well, because I'm lazy. Right? I had a student that he was lazy. He could ski, but he knew if I put the tethers on him, I was the one doing the work. You know, I was going for a ride. I'm like, no, dude, you're skiing. You're those tethers.
Yeah, tell him to suck his thumb and.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, he literally said, like, I don't want to do the work.
We're not doing that anymore. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
You're doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that I can say, especially, you know, I do a lot of our scheduling, is there's certain instructors that will rush students to levels that they shouldn't be at. And that's bad because the next week I might put someone else on a lesson with that student, and they'll come to me and say, Kevin, the evaluation said that they went to the top of the mountain or whatnot, and they're not at all ready for that. They should be out in the bunny hills.
Right. It's because somebody put the tether on them and brought them where they wanted to go. I know. I mean, that's a whole, we can get into the whole problems of that. That's exactly. So obviously, you know, within the 3 skills of skiing, we have our edging, rotary, and then our pressure skills. And you guys all are familiar with the 5 fundamentals of skiing now. I think we've had it around long enough now that that we eliminated balance as, yeah, it is. Yeah. And using dirt, and that we talked a little bit about that today, the direction with when you move, the intensity, the rotation and timing, how you use that, when and where, that's a tactic and depends upon the type of turn you're trying to make. Love that you put that one in the dirt on skis there. That's awesome. Why do we carve? Yeah, because it's fun, right? For all these reasons. Yeah, I mean, it is the most efficient way in, the stability, then we're directing that pressure to that outside ski. That is so much of the problem that a lot of people have, is the ability to maintain and direct pressure to the outside ski. For those things we talked a little bit about lead change, how that can disrupt that. A lot of people, their fear, just like in the wedge. So even at a high end, I see a lot of people that they delay the edging of the insides, the old outside ski becoming the new inside ski. Yeah, there's like a 1-2. Yeah, even at high rates of speed and very proficient skiers. And the reason for that is it's scary to move that direction, right? And maybe they're not centered over their feet. Maybe they are in the wrong place. So those are the things. That's why we talked a lot about where you need to feel in your foot to make sure you are in the right place with both feet all the time. Angulation, inclination.
Inclinations.
Yeah.
It's an image from the web that was filmed. It's your
Right. So, and the reason that this is important, and just for the analogy I use a lot of times, so if you, I don't know, if you leaned against a wall for a moment and you took a plumb bob or a string and you dropped it down to the floor with inclination, maybe Mary Ellen can lean against it. Got something? Right? And look at where her nose is inside the turn, right? Now can you give me some angulation? Yeah? And now if you brought that, now it's closer to being over her feet, even though she's still inside the turn, but more of her weight is directed over her feet then, which is going to relate to grip of the skis. And that's what we're trying to accomplish all the time. Keep those skis carving and gripping on ice or anything that's a little bit suspect to us out there. And that's where angulation comes into play. Yes, you can have, and we all have those super fun days where we're out there and you can feel like you can just lean in and tip against it on the snow. And it feels great until it doesn't. Right? But you can still get the same feeling and combine angulation. You see all these guys nowadays, putting their elbow, their hip in the snow. But there's certain ways, and we can talk a little bit about how you can get there if that's your goal. And part of it is the idea of long legs. What's that? And get back up. But it's all how you work with the momentum and those forces and when you transition. If you hang on to it too long, you're going to get locked in too much and you can't get out of the turn.
That's why I asked the question that I asked.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
hanging on too long.
Yeah, or that's my tendency. But I didn't know it.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah, you tip those skis over and you're having such a great time that you forgot to roll them over the other way. Yeah, because you're just enjoying that, but it's about when and where you transition. So areas that we can angulate from, obviously, you have your ankles. The first joint is your ankles can angulate a little bit inside the boot there. It starts within that and moves up to the knees, then obviously in the upper body, so you're trying to stay more balanced over the skis, but angulation happens from all the joints in the body. Long leg, short leg. Probably I could spend hours talking to you about. I know. But but we are going to talk about what long leg, short leg is and the importance of it is, and I think this is where people are really missing out on being able to be a higher performance skier. To be able to get angles like that, you have to soften or let that inside leg come up. And it's not about widening your stance. It's really about allowing it to come up. We can do a quick demo. If you guys can just jump up against a wall real quick, because I think it's important for you to feel this. Yeah, do it on the bar. The bar is probably the best, right? Is it stable? Pretty stable? Well, let's look at Mindy here for a second. We're going to use you as the example. Now, can you get more angles now? Yep, and you can bring it down. You don't have to bring it way. What I don't want you to do is change the width. Just pull it up. Pull it up. Yeah. So what you notice is that it didn't change the width of her stance. The only thing that changed is the height of it. Right? So when you move inside, yeah, your feet are still exactly the same distance.
The only thing that's preventing me from getting more angles now is.
Is it?
It's
Yeah.
hard to support my weight.
And we don't have a slope, right? And it's the slope that, if we had a slope that you could be against, that would be holding you there. That is what it's allowing that inside leg as you move in across to shorten.
Lets your hip drop.
It does, right? And the other thing that it does, and this is what I want you guys to look at, versus inclining, keep it where you had the sort of the feet straight. And this is what most people do out there. They get some angles, right? But this is kind of where it ends. They can't go any further until
Outside leg is fully extended, there's nowhere else to go with it.
yeah, until you start to shorten that one, shorten it, yeah, and bring it in. The other thing now, I want you to lift. Can I have a ski pole for a second? Or something straight, could be an outrigger, whatever. Can we bring both of them? Yep. And Marilyn, I'm gonna have you put them in front of her body here.
One that's tall as me. Here's two that are shorter.
Yeah, she's not gonna be using them as ski poles. We're gonna do it as sort of levels. Yep, so Marilyn, if you can come here, I want you to first do where your legs are very straight.
Oh, against here?
Yeah, just inclined more a little bit, right? She does have some angles, right? There's some angles there. Could you tip your hip in a little bit more? Yeah, a little bit, right? Yeah, you're gonna see this happen quite often. Really typical, right? But look at the edge angle. Her feet really, she's not gonna get much of an edge angle there. That's as far as the grip that she's gonna get out of her skis. Now, if you can pull that leg up, look how that changed. You can see the edge angle that she's trying to hold her balance here with the outside. But if you were, you'd be able to have a much higher angle. Now, I also want you to do the same thing. Stay in that inclined position. All right, let's take the pole and put it across her hips. And you're gonna see that it's, inclined. Like if at the top of her pelvis, so it's like that, right? It's tipped in. This is inclined, meaning that she's stuck kind of, her weight's like this. And the same thing with her shoulders. If you put it up at the shoulders, they're more like this. Yes, she has edge angle, but let's look at the way the poles are, right? Not very level. Now, now if you can pull that leg up, now look at what changed, right? So now she's level, right? So level hips, level shoulders, level body parts then, right, too? And the cool thing, can you go back? I know I'm working you out a lot here.
Can I go this way?
Sure. You're getting, So you see that? And if you did the same angle even down at her ankles, they kind of mimic the rest of the body and her knees in the angles pointing inclined into the hill. Now when she raises up that leg and does the long leg, short leg, and we're being very dynamic in demonstrating this, what's kind of cool is what's level here, if you will, is this is kind of your knee basically. This would be also, actually, if you were in it, you'd be bent, right? So these are level, your hips are level, your shoulders are level in relationship to the hill, right? Depending upon what the angle of the hill and the pitch of the hill are, right? But it levels you out, it levels the body parts when you allow that inside leg to shorten. That's why it's so important. So trying to play with that a little bit more is going to give you a lot more options, right?
Almost looks like the inside is dipped down a little bit, but it's probably just the
Could be the angle of that, but for the most part, and there's going to be a certain point where the angles are so high that you do have to incline the shoulders. They're not always 100% level. I think there's a misconception too about that long leg, short leg, is that when it comes up, it does look like the stance got wider, but it didn't, did it? It only got taller, right? Some people think that it seems like it's got to get wider to make that happen. No, it's still this is still your hip width stance. It doesn't change. You know, I didn't move my legs like this to get there. All I did was this, right? In moving it there. So this same long leg, short leg thing transfers 100% over into outrigger use. You guys know how? So if we're thinking about outriggers, when I move into my turn, I shorten this outrigger to move that way to allow myself to let my hip fall in and to get my angles. And then same thing when I transition across, I'm able to do this from turn to turn. Can you see that? So long leg, short leg is really important and always present in good mono skiing or bi skiing or 3-track. Yep. And the same thing. And you also see the flexion extension where this stays closed. And I'm not doing that. The reach that I know everybody likes to teach, reach downhill. All that does is opens up a joint, and we talked about, and once you reach out here, all my weight tips to the inside, and if I hit ice or anything else, I'm gonna slip out. If I keep my outriggers in here, and I hit something that bumps me, jars me, I've got a nice stable platform from which to make a correction. If my joint is out here, I have no pressure over it. I can't save myself to get back to center, can I? Same thing if you had your pole way out here and you start to tip inside, could you save yourself? No, if it was in here. So keeping your outriggers or your legs and arms underneath your base of support is just like you guys keeping your feet from being in these big lead changes, keeping them underneath your base of support. They do the same thing. Any questions on that? Does that make sense as a kind of a concept for you? Yeah, don't think about the reaches because that's an incline turn. This can become inclination with angulation combination.
But you see so many monoskiers where it's way out there.
Because it works. How many stand-up skiers do you see do the same thing where they tip and they lean in? It works. They're skiing all over the mountain. They're having a great time, but they're not building a really, fundamentally strong foundation from which. These are the things that we need to start to coach to, because when we see them ripping around and they're having fun, when the snow is good, it's also, but then they get on steeper terrain, they don't have the variety to be able to transition quickly to make shorter radius turns because every turn is tipped in. And I call them tick-tock skiers. You think about a metronome, right? If the top of the metronome goes back and forth like this, it's very slow. Bring the little weight on the metronome down and more towards the point of pivoting, right? Your turns become a lot faster and you have more accuracy to it, right? Yeah, when you're moving like this, and the weight's in and out and in and out, it slows things down. And it also doesn't direct pressure to the skis as well. You don't get the same grip. Yeah, I know. You will see, and I can show you every video of most people out there having the best time on mono skis, but it's not, they could be better. It's just they're not exposed to the coaching, they're not thinking about it, or their coaches or the folks aren't exposing them to what it could be. And it's sort of a problem within our industry, right? People don't, above a certain level, they don't know what to coach them anymore. And because they're not thinking about it as them as skiers, they're trying to think of them just as sit skiers. Well, it's different. It's not, right? We can still have more level shoulders. We can still have, because if I do that, you can see my shoulders are way tipped in. Gonna be great on the blues and greens and if the snow is soft, but other times they're not gonna be able to do that. They're gonna be more likely to slip out.
So would that be like part of the progression of teaching mask? No.
No, I mean, you wanna try to teach, so.
When you're doing this, are you I'm pushing in?
No, there may be a little bit of, so for some people, depending upon where their injury level is, they may need a little bit of resistance. It's an extension. So if these are my legs, even for you when you're in this, don't you extend and move a little bit? It's not a push. It's not a push off. It's an extension off of. There's a difference, right? I'm just letting it get long. It may be a slight amount of pressure because maybe for me, I don't have hips and abs. Some people could switch that based upon their injury. And you'd want them to like do it nice and slowly and progressively, not just flip a light switch, right? It's a movement across. So you want it to be.
See either a picture or video of you skiing versus somebody skiing.
Or somebody skiing with that kind of, well, you can, I mean, we'll try to get to something like that at some point, I think, later. But yeah, there's plenty of them. It's pretty much every mono skier that not every mono skier, but most you're going to see that reach. Yeah, of most of the YouTube videos of people skiing with their friends and in lessons. What, you seeing it?
Well, I said like this, I just learned from here. And I mean, look at that, that's hard, that's like way up there.
Right. Yeah, so you can see that.
Right? Like,
I mean, you can pass them around, just show them. Yeah.
The effect of that is a great outrigger, and keep both outriggers.
See how I'm like way.
Right.
Do that is extend the
And you're talking about your right.
Look at this outrigger. I mean,
The outside ski, yeah, to keep it down here. Right, if you do this and lift it.
by keeping both outriggers on the ceiling, and forcing the outside shoulder down.
Right. I mean, one of the things, a coaching cue I use is a lot like a gear shift. As I'm moving through it, it's like 1, 2, 3. Like it's and that's going to get more.
Yeah. Explain it to somebody under 40.
Well, yeah, I know. But it's more just that it's that you're trying to let that get long. You're letting that outside.
How much angulation do you have in your elbow, wrist, and shoulder when you're in that outreach position? How much is left in your arm?
How much is left in my arm? Like it can go, it depends upon the hill and the angles that I'm getting. It can go right up. I will get snow in the cuff of my outrigger from it brushing against, because I've got it flat almost against the snow, and it will scoop it up. Yeah. Because I'm having to flex it out of the way. Instead of doing that with it, I'm letting it do this. I'm letting it come up, just like we were talking about your inside leg coming up. Yeah.
So it's an elbow, you're not from the shoulder, it's up. Who is that?
No, but because I'm allowing this to come up and in, it stays, and this one to be long, and it keeps, you feel how your shoulders level? It's the same thing as you doing what you did before with your legs.
Your outriggers in turning, or are you turning?
I'm turning it too, because I need the friction of the outrigger to get things moving, or some rotary in that direction, and that's depending upon what I need for what turn I'm trying to make. Short radius, I need a lot more friction, more elongated, yeah. And it's not like this. It's not like lifting this. It's allowing this to happen. Just like when your knee came up, it's just the opposite, right? Your knee comes up like this, right? So, and this is something into pole use that I start to talk about too, is if you allow, when you guys are using your poles, if you allow, when you move inside and this leg is shortening, I'm making a turn to the right, I let my pole shorten at the same rate as my leg, because that helps, not pulling it back, I'm just shortening it. I'm keeping them in front, but I'm also letting it come up. That'll help keep this a little more level, versus, because pole touches are a result of moving inside, not because I stabbed my arm out. So that is the able-bodied version of the pole touch that we're talking about in monoskiing and biskiing. The reach is like you guys trying to reach out for a pole touch and stab something, versus the pole touch just nice and naturally happening because my body moved inside and it touched.
But it's supposed to be very subtle touch. Like it's supposed to be kind of like, I don't know, I always imagine like when I'm like skating, like I'm like holding a lunch trail.
Yeah.
It depends on the trail you're on.
Yeah, and nothing should be that static in skiing.
It's
Like,
deliberate.
Yeah.
It's not subtle, it's deliberate. Whether it's soft deliberate or hard deliberate, it's still deliberate.
You don't want to get locked into this whole like holding a tray locks you into position and doesn't allow you the fluidity to move. Yeah. The idea of level parts is great, but everything is not so rigid that your upper body's not involved anymore, right? You don't want it to grow to that point. Right. So these are all the 5 fundamentals. You guys are
See how
all.
many words there are?
Keep going through that.
Yeah, I know you don't want to.
Narrow it down to 10. Like,
But it's important here's the thing, know the words, but these are just for us. This isn't for you to ever talk to your students about. All these are basically a short term that gives you a good descriptor from which to train to, or to have an idea of, to basically have an understanding of. But
Quote that, but I can explain it.
Sure.
I mean, know the concept of each one. So read it and then say, what is that? And how do you break it down? Like there's 3 pressures, 1 edge, and 1 rotor. Yeah.
Number 5 is always a challenge. for me.
And
I
then
still
there's
to this
one
day don't
more
understand
for
what top is.
snowboarders, which has to do
number
with
5 is what
twist.
we were just talking about.
Yeah. How you regulate it comes through the combination of inclination and angulation, and yeah, exactly. And when and where you move at the top of the turn. I mean, it's always, and here's the thing with all these, you can't separate them out. You need all of these to make a turn, right? So if you think, oh, I'm just going to go out and work on, yes, it can be a primary sort of focus to what you're working on, but you cannot make any turn on the hill without these all being present. Yeah, when these were being developed, we had everybody in mind, whether it was a snowboarder, a skier, a monoskier, it did not matter. You know, I remember David Oliver, he's the freestyle guy. If you can't do it switch, or Krill can't do it, it's not a fundamental. So is what he had said. So that's how we kind of came to what the fundamentals would be, was based upon what you actually have to do to make a ski turn, whether it's going forwards, backwards, in a monoski, on one ski.
So
all these are present all the time.
they're not exactly the same, but the same concept, but they are working.
Except for twist.
And telly too, right?
What's that? Yeah. We can get into a whole other thing on telly too, that is in similarities to adaptive, especially in sit skis, but that's not for today. That's a deep one. MA definition, and just in the way that you guys start to look at this, the OEP, you guys are familiar with that concept at all? Observe, evaluate, prescribe. So it's just a good way to, those are words that you can remember as how you want to approach, make an observation, evaluate what's going on, and then make a prescription for it. It's a pretty simple concept when you think about it. And that's any problem that you solve in life, right? Observe it, evaluate it, make a prescription. How are we going to fix it? Don't make it, but you'll hear it as OEP as the acronym for it a lot of times, but that is what we use in PSA Aussie for the Foundation for Movement Analysis. So just familiarize yourselves with the OEP model.
Whether you know it or not, every single lesson you're doing that constantly from beginning to end. You're always looking at your student and you're always going, I wonder what I can do next to get them to do this.
Yeah, run to run, moment to moment. You're constantly in that observation mode and then trying to evaluate what you're going to do and then coming up with ways to fix it.
Can you apply it to the goal that you set for the beginning of the lesson, if you set a goal? Your lesson plan, can I get from point A to point B?
No ask.
Well, I had a question about the cause and effect part.
Yeah.
I never thought of it in those terms, but that makes sense, but, so here's my question, is I've always watched the skis to figure out what I want to try to extract. Should I be watching the body more?
It depends upon, but if the body's doing, this is also a personal preference. There's no one way to approach movement analysis on that way. It will be what your eye is drawn to. So yes, and usually if the body's doing something that your eye was drawn to, it's going to have the same effect on the skis. And if the skis are doing something that you don't like, it's probably because they're doing something with their body, right? It's just usually one or the other sort of your eye is drawn to, but which one of them is it that you prefer to look at?
Skis, I should probably look at the body and
What's
figure out why.
Right.
Well, if you know if a ski is behaving a certain way, do you know what part of the body without even if you didn't see their body? So if I described to you, you know, there was displacement of the skis at the start of the turn, like that they were displacing, one was going one way, the other way. What do you think's going on with the body?
Well, both feet are rotating in the same direction.
Right. Well, it can be a bunch of things. It can be that they're aft, that they're back because they're not forward enough to be able to engage the tips, that they're balanced on the inside ski more than the outside ski. So their weight's more inside and not direct in the lack of angulation. So there's lots of things going on in the body that were related to why you saw this, right? So you saw something going on with that, and then you're gonna probably say, oh, I see their skis are displacing during the turn, and then you start to bring your eye up a little bit and you look for something going on maybe in the body, right? That's cause and effect relationships. You saw the outcome, which is always the ski snowboard interaction on the snow, and then you've got to come up with, okay, so I know something's wrong because the outcome of what's going on the snow is not right. So now I start to move up the body and like look for something that is causing that to happen.
I guess I probably do.
What's that?
I probably do start to look up the body.
Right, but sometimes you look at the body because it's just so overly evident too, right? You see them whipping their hands around and they're twisting and, you know, their head's in a weird position and they're doing all kinds of funky things. So your eye gets drawn to that. I mean, obviously it's having all those terrible effects on snow too, right?
Well, those kinds of things, like arms not being in front, and that stuff I do notice without looking at the skis. So, because it's most common and it's like,
Yeah, and again, usually it comes back down to teaching what's going on with the feet and legs first and foremost, because that's what we turn with. So you'll see a lot of times people will try to coach to poles, like they see it at the poles and they see it at the upper body, and they'll say, oh, I want you to ski better by keeping your hands in front, but they never really learned still how to turn their legs. Yeah, it may have a little bit of an effect on it, but the reason that they're turning their body all over the place is because that's their turning mechanism, instead of it being down below, meaning their legs. So the only way they're getting the ski to come around, you can see the effect in my chair, right? When I turn like that, you can see it wind up second, versus if I had these on the ground, I'd be turning underneath here and my body could stay stable. So it's teaching, knowing that where the skiing comes from, just like when we were playing with all those spoons and whatnot, starting to teach there, and that fixes the body part.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I experienced that. I experienced that. Like, I didn't realize that I was turning my upper body as much as I have been. I was skiing with my brother one day in January, and he had me doing something. He's like, yeah. He's like, now we just need to work on your upper body. But then I worked on it some more with another instructor, and I was like, oh, like I could just feel I wasn't having to think about keeping my upper body more still. It just was. Because I was thinking about my...
Because you're using your legs properly. So now that didn't have to come into play, right? So it quieted the upper body because you learned to do something different with your feet. So you didn't have to have another added twisting motion to get those skis to come around. Yeah. So this one, we went over OEP, so that's it. And then you got to look at just the way that it's, like we all want the optimal. This is just like in our clinic when we were talking about a little bit ago, right? We all want to make everybody a great, World Cup skier in 2 hours. And everybody expects that when they paid a lot of money to come to some clinic. That's not measurable and it's not feasible and you're not going to be able to do that. It's not realistic, is it? It's more about, were you introduced to some concepts that you're going to be able to take home, practice, put into play in your skiing and feel like you can make some gains forward in your own performance. So, yeah, don't expect it all to happen at one time. Those are unreasonable goals.
It's especially great if someone's been skiing a long time. They've probably got stuff to do. Like the more you've been skiing, the more ingrained your movement pattern.
Yeah, and there's sometimes, you know what, there's people that just don't want to learn it. The student or anybody in front of you, they have to have validation of why they need to make a change, right? Like I'm sure we could go out and I would talk to you about like what I'm seeing and like, here's something that would just, why it was going to be better for you. If you do this, it's going to give you more tactics, more, what do I want to say? You're going to have more options at your disposal because if you, not that you're not skiing well or not that you're not able to tackle all the kinds of terrain, but if you can make this subtle change in body position or the way that you're turning your legs or allowing that inside leg to soften, it's going to allow you to have better angles, more grip, you know, perform at a higher level, right?
Efficient skier, so.
Right.
At the end of the day, I want to be able to say, I can keep going.
I
I'm
can
not
go
too
longer
tired.
because of efficiency, right?
What?
Yeah.
My endurance is better and I can go
Absolutely.
longer because I'm more efficient. I didn't expend as much energy.
Right.
Right.
That's my goal.
Right, and I was able to do it and I felt safer at doing it. I didn't feel like those moments of,
More fun.
yeah, exactly, and it all translates to fun. But the reality is to make high performance turns, it's one of those, it's a catch-22. The better you get, the higher edge angles you get, the more performance you're starting to create, the more fitness you have to have, the more strength to handle those forces, right? You're in a more optimal place and you're getting higher edge angles and those skis are pushing back from the snow into your body. It still takes some work, right? You know, it's like, I always compare it to water skiing on that front. You know, anybody can stand up behind a boat and just get dragged behind it on two skis and they're having a great time in water skiing. Where it starts to become really challenging and difficult and the fitness comes into it is when you start to really carve and you're working with those forces and those big angles and ripping across the wake at, you know, 50 miles an hour. It becomes real. You can't just be hanging out behind the boat and enjoying it, right? You're water skiing, right? But it's a different type. And as you elevate in your own performance, you have to be ready to manage those forces too and be ready for that. And you need to be in an efficient body position to do that too. So, all right. We talked a little bit about the cause and effect relationships, how important that is. That's, you know, just when you look at something, know what is causing it. That's an important, I say that to my kids all the time for some reason. They hate it. They're like, they choose to do something, and I'm like, well, that's a cause and effect relationship. And they're like, shut up, Dad. You know? Yep, you chose to do that. That's the problem, you know. But you didn't think that 2 steps ahead that was going to be, you know. That's why you're in trouble right now. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is. You know, you can look at these. You know, one of the things in this picture of the skier, you see a bunch of different types. You see the ski instructor whose legs, what do you think? Too close together? Is that a little bit of what we were talking about? Not allowing that because of their stance. They can, if you have too close a stance, you guys, stand up for a second. We're going to do this as a hip hike thing because it's important. So, all right, let's go with the closer stance. Do the long leg, short leg. Try to pull it up. Try to pull a leg up from there. It doesn't, right? It doesn't come up very far. Now let's go hip width with it. Not too wide. Don't go too wide, Mary Ellen. Yeah, now bring it up. So much easier, isn't it? So when you're kind of, and you're stuck on the ground, you can a little bit, but okay, but if you'd be pulling your foot off the snow if you did that too.
When I'm wider, I feel like I have to shift first before I raise. Like when I'm like
Because we have to balance. If you are leaning
against something. Yeah, but also try to, so in there if you try to keep your feet on the ground, if you will, try to think about how you would make that hip higher. You know, if you try to lift one leg. That's basically what that blue instructor looks like, right? They're kind of pulling it up a little bit to try to keep it level, but they can only go so far until they get a little wider, and then they're able to move inside and raise. See, even doing that, how much more you got. And then allowing that leg to soften and shorten. Yeah, right? And that's where many skiers stop, is because they can only they got the narrower stance, and they can only tip and let those skis move up. So their hips are always a little bit inclined and hard to keep level.
You feel your ankle movement too a lot better. If your feet are really close together, try rolling your feet and then open up a little bit and see how much further you can go.
Just even in that.
You can't really roll it off.
Well,
Can't get much.
yeah, but if
Right.
you watch like a freestyle mogul skier, right? They're locked in,
Because they're not having to create any angles.
Tactics.
It is.
and their knees are just up and down.
Look at their skis are also very flat,
Right.
right? Now, when we're trying to carve and create higher edge angles and grip, theirs is a lot of absorption and pivot
So how are they controlling their speed?
through a combination of being able to tip into that. They're using the ski, bending it, tipping, using it, absorption, but being able to react and move to the next turn. They're still turning, it's a lower edge angle turn.
Pivoting.
Well, the terrain is constantly changing. I mean, not the terrain, but the
Well,
contact spot, or the contact, what part of their ski is contacting the mobile is. it just
Mostly
looks like
they're-
it's constantly.
They're using the whole ski too, because if you looked at it from the side, you tend to watch those competitions from the front, but if you look at it from the side, they're actually meeting the terrain with their tips and tails through each one and using that to help slow themselves down while turning. They're moving through the whole ski. The shovel.
He goes into
The trough, yeah.
So
and bends.
Yeah.
That is a slowing down movement right there.
Yeah.
That's-
You're using the mobile to slow yourself
Yeah.
down.
Right,
too.
yeah. You're hitting a wall in some sense too that does have a moment.
If you, like, if you could see, like, from the air after the run, like, the path that they took, there would be turns.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't.
there has to be, yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a pivoty turn. They're not using the full side cut of the ski. Yeah, it's more of a pivot.
Yeah.
It's gotta kill their spines.
You've seen
I've seen bumps, but not that.
Yeah, but even so.
They're skiing man-made bumps that are so symmetrical.
Symmetrical.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to it. It's
A lot of times they're going over the top and making the pivot, slight pivot, right on top. Because there's a lot of different ways to ski mobiles.
Right.
And they're doing a combination of that, but they use the top of the mobile a lot because as you're looking at them coming straight on, it looks like they're just going like this, right down.
but they're actually turning their legs a ton.
But that well, let's look like their legs are doing that, but
Yeah.
their bodies are,
Yep.
or their torsos are.
Yeah, they're doing all the work underneath. Yep, they're keeping that body very down the fall line and working the legs underneath.
So is there freestyle mono skiing?
What's that? There is. Yeah. Yeah. But you can also see then I think it's the gal in purple here, where she has a much better allowing that softening of that inside ski, right? Like we were talking about, which is a better, she has more options than the ski instructor does there.
But is it just the place in the turn that there? Because I feel like at least the ski instructor, like I can see both of her shoulders, whereas the purple pant person, one shoulder, like she's got much, it seems like she has a lot more upper body rotation. Okay.
I don't know if she's got more upper body. I think that the ski instructor is skiing too close together, right? So they're going to be having to make more of an inclinated turn, right? At least we don't know that this person was able to have that stance throughout the entire turn, but in that one moment, in that freezing of it, she's got a nice softening of the inside ski. She's got a nice stance. I can see light between her legs. I can't with the other one. So she has less ability to get any. You can't create angles if your legs are next to each other. You're limiting also the amount of knee angulation that you're able to get. Yeah, I can feel that. Right? And then you just go to your hip width stance and then feel how much more options you have. Right?
Oh yeah, sure. I guess I'm just looking at the
Just through a simple thing like that. Yep. So leg rotations. Let's see if we can pull this one up.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Blue from the Rookie Academy and the Ski and Snowboard Schools of Aspen. And what I'm here to talk to you about today is developing the ability to turn the legs under a stable pelvis and upper body. One of the most difficult and important things for a new instructor to learn how to do is to demonstrate the ability to turn by turning their feet and legs. Developing the ability to turn the feet and legs is a versatile way to turn the skis in any direction we want to go, whether it's a bigger turn or a smaller turn, terrain, bumps, crud, or ice. By turning the legs means turning the big part of the leg, or the thigh, and everything below it underneath the hip and pelvis area. It requires keeping a strong core and a slightly flexed stance to give full access to the ability to turn the legs. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get into an athletic stance. As you can see, I'm slightly flexed in my ankle, knee, and hip joint with my back slightly tilted forward. From this slightly flexed athletic stance, I'm going to walk my feet to the right and left. As you can see, my pants, the red part, is moving, and the black part, my jacket, is staying very still and stable. What I'm feeling as I do this is I'm feeling pivoting right around the arch of my feet, a strong core, and as I turn my feet and legs, I'm feeling a winding up in the hip and core, and as I release them and go back to neutral, I'm feeling an unwinding in the hip and core. Now we'll try that moving. I'm going to point my skis straight down the hill and turn them back up the hill. This is called a J-turn. You'll notice as I'm sliding forward, I'm in a slightly flexed athletic stance, and you can see the red pants turn while the black jacket stays stable. As you can see here, I'm linking leg turning from one direction to another. This is also called a pivot slip. I'm turning my legs 180 degrees one way, and then 180 degrees the other way. Continuous flowing motion of the legs under a stable upper body. We can see the same thing here in some short turns. We can see the legs redirecting the ski while the body takes a more direct path down the hill. Developing the ability to turn the legs under a stable pelvis and upper body is key to gaining control of rate of turning and the ability to make any size turn you want. On behalf of the Rookie Academy, we all look forward to training with you in beautiful Treble Cone this winter.
So I want you guys let's think about this from a disability perspective even. If I put outriggers in his hand, and I cut his legs off and I put a sit ski underneath him, can you kind of visualize that? It's not any different, because he's keeping his pelvis moving down the fall line, which you're in your seat, your bucket, you're doing the same thing, and then you are turning your legs. Your ski would do the same thing that his legs are doing, and my head and shoulders should be doing the exact same thing. That hand position that he's in too, if I'm in a really efficient outrigger position, my outriggers are not out here to initiate or out here to reach, they're in here. So very much like this is the analogy I use, is if I brought my hands up they're the same as where you keep your poles. My outriggers aren't out here to make a pole touch, they're in here. So optimally as a sit skier, they should be in the same position from which to make my turns or to move to my pole touch, right? They should operate in here, not with big reaches.
But is there a progression to get to that?
Because your first turn is you're going here and you steer with your outriggers from a flat ski. You don't because the only way you're also going to be able to make that big reaching turn is with a lot of speed, because it's not flat ski rotary based. It's a tipping, edging, which requires to be able to even stay upright. They're probably going to have to be moving pretty fast, right? Which brings a little more danger into it, right? And then all of a sudden, they learn to go fast and tip and edge, but they never learned how to skid, or it takes longer to learn how to skid. So you're teaching skidding and flat ski rotary skills first and foremost before you teach a big edging movement. That's how you don't have to unteach. You teach the flat ski rotary skills from the beginning. So, but we tend to get excited about and tell them it's not reaching. It's the same thing that when I'm getting the person that's they think they're going to turn a monoski or turn their two-footed skis by just tipping, and they fall over, or they end up having to go real fast to do that, right? What I'm trying to teach them is that they do this really slow and steer their feet. and you're steering your outriggers and keeping this part very stable, very quiet, and very smooth. And then you're off to teaching them that building a skier more from the bottom up with the right skill sets that you don't have to unteach and get rid of all those banking and inclinated habits.
So I think people feel the outriggers are giving them stability, right? When you're going inside, you never want to leave, right? But the student feels that they're giving them stability, that if I was to start to go to my right, this outrigger is going to keep me.
Because they're trying to push and lean to get there.
And you don't want to do that.
Right. We're looking at, did you see how his body stayed here? What we're looking for is the turning of this, still keeping my head and shoulders moving in the fall line. And when I turn and create a little friction to one side by steering that outrigger, it draws the ski in that direction. And I don't have to do a lot with this. It all happens because just like in here, he was saying that you felt tension in the core and in the pelvis there. This starts to turn because the edge has been tipped over slightly. It engages, starts to carve. It starts to go this way, and my body's still carrying this way.
I had the experience this year of skiing with a bi-skier who isn't using outriggers or fixed outriggers. And it's just her body who's, just that subtle movement of her body who's making all the turns. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Right, and you were tethering.
Riggers, no fixed riggers.
No.
Yeah.
Just sitting in a bucket with a
Sure.
tether.
Yeah. You will find some when they've elevated. That's when you get to the ultimate, like in combination, the student tether or partnership is awesome. You don't always necessarily have to have the fixed outriggers because they've learned enough when and where to move, when to transition. Yep. And in combination with you being there to be in the right place at the right time for tethering. Yeah. So it's a cool skill set for you to be able to do rigorless tethering.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Yes.
It makes it so much more subtle that you have to be. As
Right.
a tether.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I did for our national team tryout for the candidates is they had to do rigorless tethering with a dummy. Yep. So because that's
Dummy. That even be hard.
right. Well, it is, but I wanted to see that they had that skill set of knowing when to transition without having to be able to, without slamming it to the rigger, learning more when and where to be in transition to efficiently move that ski. So that was on, it was blue terrain, but it was, because we don't tether on black. But it was a significant.
Did you hear that?
But it was a pretty significant blue.
Just want to make sure everybody heard that.
I don't do that. If it's a blue-black, I consider it blue.
Okay.
Like if it's a black diamond,
Well,
I'm colorblind, it looks blue.
there's certain things within, we'll go down that road a little bit. So you guys, the whole thing about,
On this note,
before we go to lunch, let's talk about, like the purpose of tethers, right? And what we're trying to do with them. I think this is an important discussion for me. And let's talk about the difference between handheld rigger and fixed rigger. The problem when you go to fixed rigger on anything really above a blue is that you can't get the ski to articulate and tip into the hill enough to be doing an efficient turn shape to slow it down. So it becomes a lot more work and a more dangerous fall line type. One of those turns it's shallower, and you're having to put a lot of pressure on the tether. And for what gain? There isn't any, because they're not really working on, completing turns, feeling it come across, re-engage when your student's working with you. Right. And because you can't put those fixed outriggers in far enough, that is one reason for the rigorless tethering, is that it does allow you to go on to with a student that's a very specific situation. But you've got to be an accomplished enough tetherer and a student who's working with you at that level to be able to, but it's without the riggers. It's also, because you get onto that kind of there's a lot of equipment, a lot of weight. If it's terrible conditions that day, you could slide a long ways without being able to self-arrest. So that's the dangerous component. A lot of risk versus reward, why you would choose that. And then you get into it with the handheld rigger participant. If they are that good that they are able to make turns with handheld outriggers and be moving left and right, and they're probably creating, big turns, and there you said it, right? They have not, I hate to say it, but they have not earned the right to be up there. And it's the same thing for any of us. We earned the right to get up there, right? We wouldn't. We acquired the skills to be able to go to that terrain. And we're kind of doing a disservice to them because we've taken away the goal and something to work towards. We've given them a ride and an experience, that they could have achieved themselves, hopefully. And every situation's a little different, but.
I always say that anyone can go fast in a sit ski, but those who control their speed, those are the ones that's where you take the tethers off.
Yes.
And also one of the things that as a tetherer that we probably don't ever think about is teaching the etiquette for the person in the bucket to understand what's going on behind them. They don't see you, but we don't teach them to understand what you're doing and what compromises you have to make when they do something like, oh, I want to go too close to the trail. Like,
well, we can have this conversation.
But we need to teach
you have it before.
You know what? It's funny you say that because when I was at HGAT,
You guys, one at a time. So.
one conversation at a time. Before.
All right, Kevin, go ahead.
Kevin has the floor.
So what Dick was saying, when we were out at DAV, I was skiing with a woman and someone took a video of us coming down, and I airdropped to her afterwards. And her comment was, wow, I didn't realize how much you are actually doing behind me. So they don't know unless you educate them what's happening.
Exactly.
And we do
And you have to also
Yeah.
teach them that, listen, I'm doing a lot of work back here, I need a break. Because Kevin had mentioned that he did with one of his skiers from
Well, that was my own stupid.
Yeah.
That was my
all the
own
way,
stupid.
and he didn't want to take a break. Kevin needed a break, or perhaps, I mean.
No, I was fine,
Yeah.
but it was my own stupid decision.
But also they need to
Talked about.
understand that, like, you are not Superman and you have limitations too. And hopefully your limitations don't exceed their limitations.
We always
But
explain
The
that.
dynamic is a team, and a team has to check with their teammates all the time. You
Yeah.
should be constantly communicating, but you have to let them know that because they can't see you.
But it
They
goes
don't know
both
what's
ways.
going on.
So one thing I learned, this year was I was with somebody and they wanted to stop. And I had no idea. They were telling me I want to stop, but I was behind them. I could not hear them.
That's the emergency stop
So,
movement.
but
that's
ever
what-
since, I've come up with a discussion beforehand that if you want to stop, I want you to pick up one of your riggers and just give it a little wiggle side to side, and that's my sign that you want to stop, and we're going to stop.
And then I'd ask, why couldn't they stop?
Well, right.
I would sometimes ski around in front of them so they could see how hard I was working.
No. I think, the part about this conversation is, this is a hard one, and we had talked about it last night when it comes to that particular event, right? And it's one of the things that, and it also comes up quite often for me in all programs around the country, is that we're at a point where we have equipment that we can take anybody skiing and show them an incredible time, and we can take them up to the top of the mountain on day one. We just can do that. We have equipment to do it in any way, shape, or form. It's easy. We have it. It's all there at our disposal. For almost any type of disability. I mean, there are people doing sip and puff, and there's programs that are allowing to do ventilators. Not with any.
5-year-olds, 99-year-olds.
It was any.
Yeah. But the problem is that you created a dangerous situation for yourself because you're taking a very. So this is what could have happened to me. I could have showed up at a program, and instead of them taking the time to do a straight run and go through the struggle in the fall, they could have been like, well, let's take them to the top, let's get them in a bi-ski and pop and slap the tether on me. Was it the right choice for me? Was it the evolution and the learning curve that I needed to become a skier? No, but they could have done it and they could have done it very easily. And then I would have learned tons of edging skills. I would have been having a good time, but it would have been really difficult for me to then learn my independence because I learned a skill set that's very frustrating. It doesn't lend well to learning how to skid. And it makes it, now you're stuck as being this person, well, I ski all over the mountain. And I'm a super strong guy, have the ability to do a lot of things, and you are back there just hanging on for dear life, right? Because I can go fast, I can switch from edge to edge, I can lean, I can tip, I can go fast, and then and you're trying to just, and then all of a sudden I hit a random bump, and you hear this and like, oh, I hurt my shoulder tethering because he hit a bump and they were going too fast because the student is able to. But that student should have put in a little bit of time or even if you're tethering like that, have it at least be goal oriented where, okay, we're gonna go this speed, you're working, I wanna see you slow down and then re-engage your turn. I want you to at least be coming back up the hill, slow it down, and then you're in control of it. But you can't let it turn into this where you're just hanging, because they can do railroad track turn. Just like we were talking about carving. That ski is a mechanical carver. And if you tip it over, it just continues to carve and carve and carve. And we can't do that even physically ourselves on pitches. And that machine will do that until you, as the tetherer, either have to yank back on it or you get blown up. And that's kind of the reality of it. And we get sucked into wanting to see that smile and that excitement, and it's fun. But we could make it a better teaching moment just by, and it's not we're not taking the fun out of it. We can still go up on the lift, but we're doing it with a purpose of let's work towards a skidded turn or a turn where they're able to slow down a little bit, and it's not about fast and furious and going and coming down from the top.
Yeah, Mindy made a good point, is that you have to get past your own ego to actually be there for the student and think about what their goal is.
Well, that's the key. What's the goal?
You made to set it. Their goal is always.
But sometimes they don't know the potential. That's the problem.
What if it's someone that lives in Florida that's up here visiting their uncle in New England for a weekend, and the family's going skiing, and they want to go skiing with the family, and they're never going to come again until 5 years from now.
You can have just as
Right,
much
it's still important to teach
fun.
something, but you're not going to take that person down to the flats and push them around and waste 3 hours.
We do with their spouse who's able-bodied.
You could do that, right? But what I'm saying is someone this is their only time in their life maybe that they're going to ski.
What?
Why is the only time their spouse's life that they're gonna ski?
Why can't they have a good time on the lower level when they're
Yeah, but you had an 8-year-old kid who's with his grandfather. He's from Alabama.
Right.
He's never going to ski again, brother. He was up with his grandfather.
Right.
He couldn't go around to the top of the mountain. He never got on top of a mountain. We skied
I
down with
get
a
it.
good time.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a passenger, not a ski.
It was his decision.
Well, it's the thing is that.
But if it's someone like we have like Ariana, that her goal was to become an independent monoskier, of course you put all the effort in the world into starting it.
But the others they're selling themselves short and will take they don't know what their capabilities are sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
What I'm hearing is, why are we treating it any different than the stand-up two-chair skier? Exactly.
You got to ask yourself that question.
Yes.
Right? And not that you couldn't give them a reward, but maybe you show them that there's the potential of, and then you say, hey, you know what? We're going to work hard for a while, and if not, I'll bring you to the top of the mountain just so you can see the view. And yeah.
I'll transition out of a monoski to a bi-ski for the last run of the day and just go have fun.
Right.
Or the kid that is working very hard on standing up to ski with outriggers and worked so hard that you want to give them a reward and put them in the bucket to go to the top of the hill. And they're meeting their PT goals, they're meeting their physical fitness goals and working hard. And hopefully as that child grows into an adult, has the strength to be the stand-up skier. But
yeah, it's a hard one because it's very easy to take an easier route out. And just because somebody has a disability doesn't mean we need to sell them short. It becomes a little bit of, well, they have a disability and they're from Florida, but so does their spouse is from Florida, and they were in a beginner lesson and never left the carpet. Right? But because they have the disability, we felt that that's that becomes the whole thing of ableism.
I don't look at it from they have a disability. I look at it from I've got a piece of equipment that allows me to.
I know, but I could do that with an able-bodied skier too. I could slap tethers on you and have you at the top of the mountain.
We did that this year. We had a guy.
You know,
He was
it's very much a dilemma.